This is HRRN, horse racing's voice.
And here's Always a Runner, up for the lead. Always a Runner in the race for the Lilies, under the lights, wins the Oaks by a length in the end.
Welcome to the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires.
I knew my horse was a bit closer, so I don't have any interest on being involved early. You can see the way I broke. I just want to go to the rail and save ground, you know. So I did that, and I was hoping for a big run late, and I was hoping for a fast pace, and I'm glad we had it.
Golden Tempo from off the pace to win the Derby, and a career-defining, a racing-defining win for Cherie DeVoe.
That's how he runs, so it's not like we really did anything different than he hadn't done in his previous starts. You know, there was a lot of speed on tap on paper, and that materialized. And, you know, I watched Jose come up and get himself in position going into the final turn. And about the 3/16 pole, I thought, we're probably going to win this. And then I really kind of blacked out after that.
Now, here's Mike Penna and Angela Hermann.
Good morning once again, everyone. Mike Penna, Baron of the Backstretch, welcoming you to the show that launched a network. It is the Equine Forum. It is all presented by TwinSpires, and all right here on the Horse Racing Radio Network. As always, you are listening nationwide on Sirius 162, XM 207, along with our terrestrial partners, and live streaming worldwide on our website, horseracingradio.net. And don't forget, too, if you miss any portion of today's show, or maybe you just want to catch up on some of your favorite HRN shows, we post the podcast of every single show and even some special segments on our website. And, of course, you can do that at horseracingradio.net and listen on your favorite podcast platform. Well, you just heard it as we open the show. I begin today's program with some incredibly important breaking news. After Angela Hermann's impressive maiden breaking appearance on this show last Saturday, we decided, what the hell, let's do it again this morning. As a matter of fact, you're going to be treated to hearing Angela alongside me every single Saturday morning here on the Equine Forum going forward, and it's going to be fantastic, and I am so excited to say, Angela, officially welcome to the team.
I think the only person more excited about that news is me, and I'm pleased to be joining you again. I had such a good time talking to you and talking to everybody, really, about Derby. It was quite a way to break into this, and I can't wait to do it again and again and again.
Yeah, what a weekend at Churchill Downs, huh? I mean, we talked about it on this program last Saturday morning, the Oaks, and how special that day was. Matter of fact, Chad Brown's going to join us coming up later in the program about 9:20 Eastern to talk about Always a Runner and to look back on that day. But you look at what the numbers that are out there, and NBC blowing it out of the water, a record 19.6 million viewers tuning into their Kentucky Derby coverage last Saturday. That's 11% higher than last year's numbers when Sovereignty won.
That's fantastic news. And just considering the way that some things have gone with TV coverage with horse racing, to see it really being front and center as it's supposed to be with one of the biggest events of the year, that is excellent news. And so good to see new eyes on horse racing too. Not just the people coming to the track, but people all across the country taking it in different ways. Maybe they didn't have cable. They can watch it streaming online. They can take it in however they'd like. And it really seemed to have worked. So I'm glad to hear that.
That's really where a lot of this television media is heading now. Yes, network television is important. You have to be out there. But all of the different streaming outlets that NBC was able to provide and the social media content, the viewership peaked. Angela, how about this? 24.4 million viewers. That was the peak from about 7 o'clock to 7:15, just as Golden Tempo was crossing the finish line.
No, if only we could get those every Saturday in racing. Maybe they would all love it as much as we do, but it's definitely a step in that direction. And getting the best of the best lined up and keeping them going, of course, is an important part of that. So we get to talk to some of the people that are involved with those different horses. You know, you can't talk to the athletes every day. That's why shows like this are so important, to get to talk to the athletes that we can. You can't interview the players. The players don't talk. So getting the perspective of everybody and really seeing where they're going, that much more important, and that's one of the big things that they did put on NBC. And
how about those storylines that race provided us last weekend? You have trainer Cherie DeVoe, and so much has been made about her making history as the first female trainer ever to win the Kentucky Derby. That's certainly incredibly special for her. And then the Ortiz brothers, Jose, the winner, Erod, his brother, a narrow loser, just a neck behind aboard Renegade in second. And then the ownership, the Phipps family. You have Vinny Viola, who's involved with the partnership as well. He is also the owner of the NHL's Florida Panthers. So many great storylines associated with Golden Tempo.
Yeah, and great to see that they are involved. Like, Vinny Viola's been a supporter of racing, and you can see when the Florida Panthers do win the Cup, they get involved with Gulfstream Park, and the trophy makes its way around to people. And gosh, you wish you would do that with the Derby trophy too. Maybe he will go and take that around to introduce people to it in a different sort of way. But you did get to see then the old school part of things with the Phipps family and how long they've been breeding to race, and really see it pay off with Golden Tempo, because you don't see it every year as much as you used to, but great to see them in the winner's circle, and they're easy people to root for. I mean, everybody involved.
You think about the 19.6 million viewers that were tuning into the coverage, and then 24.4 million right as the race was going off, and what they were treated to. And you got to keep in mind, and I've said this for years, so many of those viewers are not horse racing fans. They are maybe sports fans. Maybe they're not even sports fans. They're just tuning in because it's the Kentucky Derby, and this may be the only horse race, and likely the only horse race they watch all year long. And for them to witness history, you have to think it's got to do something to draw at least a small percentage of those people back again.
If nothing else, when they see horse racing come across as one of the offerings that's on television right now, maybe they change the channel to that. Maybe you pull that up on your streaming service. Maybe you did have a good time, or maybe you even cashed a bet. You saw an exciting finish. You saw some of the things that make horse racing great, and you want to do it again. And even if you don't get it the next time, maybe you want to try it again. It's one of those things that does get you to watch it again for a number of different reasons. Whether you like the horses, whether you do like gambling, whether you like sports, it has something to offer for a lot of different fans. So I really hope that they enjoyed their experience on the first Saturday in May, and that it provides a summer of exciting action between these 3-year-olds, because I don't think this is nearly the last that we'll see of them facing off.
No, I agree. And unfortunately, we're not going to get to see Golden Tempo in the second leg of the Triple Crown, the Preakness Stakes, next weekend. News coming out this week that Cherie and the Phipps and Vinny Viola, they've gotten together and they said, you know what, in the best interest of the horse, we're going to give him more time. We're going to point for the Belmont Stakes as the final leg of the Triple Crown. So no Triple Crown again this year. It's the second consecutive year that the Derby winner is not moving on to the second leg, and that's a bit of an alarming trend. I remember, my goodness, not that long ago, it was almost automatic that you won the Derby, you went to the Preakness.
And of course, it does drive interest in the Preakness, and it is an important race. And I understand that getting the Derby winner to it does generate that much more buzz and interest in it. But I think it was David Aragona who made a good point about this year's Triple Crown in particular, with the Preakness being at Laurel, with the Belmont being at Saratoga. If they want to go about it their own way, it's a different year altogether, and things are probably going to change going forward. So, just making it your own schedule probably is going to become closer to the norm in the future. And I kind of expected them, I think, to point more towards the Belmont than the Preakness, this particular group of connections. So I guess it didn't catch me off guard. It is a little disappointing, but not altogether unexpected.
I always say the horse comes first. And if this is what is best for Golden Tempo, then yes, absolutely. But if Golden Tempo was doing well and the decision was made just because we want to just give him a little bit more time, that's a little iffy for me. I'm a traditionalist. I don't want to move the Triple Crown. I don't want to see the Preakness move back 3-4 weeks after the Kentucky Derby and then have the Belmont be another 4 weeks. And the flip side of that argument is people will say, well, wait a minute. If you do that, then the horses that ran in the Derby are more likely to come back in the Preakness because they'd have more time, so you'd have a much more competitive, difficult field to beat in the Preakness Stakes. I can see that side of it too, but I don't like the idea of shifting the Triple Crown around. I think that's what makes it such a huge challenge to go 2 weeks and then 3 weeks into the Belmont.
I agree with you. I mean, I'm more of a purist. I think that it's it's supposed to be difficult. That's why it's the Triple Crown. But you see sports changing all over. Things are shortening up in different ways. Sometimes pitchers don't go as long. Just things are changing around the world. So if it has to change with the sport to maybe inject a little bit of life into it, and the spacing might help things, I think even giving it a try and moving it back wouldn't be unheard of. We ran the Derby in the fall one year recently, so being at least willing to try to make it a bit more viable sequence for both horses and for eyes on it, I would be willing to give it a shot, even if it doesn't stick permanently.
Do you buy into the fact that it would be more difficult to win the Triple Crown if you spaced out the races a month apart, because the fields would be bigger and more competitive, almost like a Kentucky Derby type field?
I think it could be difficult and easier. The difficulty of the sequence, of course, would be eased, but I'm sure fuller fields, perhaps better betting opportunities, more fresh horses that are developing later. That part would definitely up the degree of difficulty. So I can see an argument for both. It's just the purity of the Triple Crown being what it has been for so long. You don't want to mess with a formula that has worked as long as it has. It's just, if we're going to not have Triple Crowns even be a possibility, that's, I guess, when you do have to start looking at it. So they have.
You rename it a different series. It can't be called the Triple Crown if you space them out a month apart, in my opinion. That's the way I feel about it. I think the Triple Crown is the way it is structured right now. If you move them around, you have to come up with a different name for that series, because now it's not the same accomplishment that all of those other horses that have won the Triple Crown have been able to pull off. But we'll see how this, but we're going to talk more about that topic with Dale and Tim when they join us for I Ask, They Answer at the end of the program, right around 10:30 Eastern, that final segment of the show. Poll question this morning: which Kentucky Derby runner, other than the top two, Golden Tempo and Renegade, are you most excited to see run again? Which Kentucky Derby runner, other than Golden Tempo and Renegade, are you most excited to see run again? You can go to @HRRN on X to let us know which horse you're looking forward to seeing, or you can do it on Facebook too, Horse Racing Radio Network on Facebook, or email the show, mike@horseracingradio.net, to let us know which horse you're excited to see run again that is not named Golden Tempo or Renegade. I'm sure we're all excited for those two, but some of the horses that finished behind them, let us know your thoughts, and we will pass along the results later on in the program when we do get some time. Lee Delapina brings you our Mojo Racing Impossible Trivia question every single week, and here it is for this Saturday morning.
Thank you, Mike. This week's Impossible Trivia question is brought to you by Mojo Racing Partners. Get your mojo working at mojoracingpartners.com. In the years 1917 and 1922, it was physically impossible for any horse to win the Triple Crown. What made it impossible in those two specific years? No Googling. We'll give out the answer at the end of the show.
All right, the answer coming your way right around 10:55 Eastern Time. Get your mojo working and see if you can figure it out. Mike Penna, Angela Hermann, we're back with Walker Hancock from Claiborne Farm, the place where Golden Tempo was raised, the 11th Derby winner in 100 years, raised at Claiborne. He's going to tell you all about that next in our Kentucky Bred conversation. This is the Equine Forum presented by TwinSpires on HRRN, Horse Racing's voice.
Race to TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Happy Saturday, race fans. We have 9 big races today at Santa Anita Park, with first post being 1 p.m. and many low takeout wagers throughout the day, like the Pick 4, the Pick 5, the $3 late Pick 3, the ever-popular Coast to Coast Pick 5, and the $5 late Deli Double. Our feature race today is the Senorita Stakes, a Grade 3 going down the hill featuring my best bet of the day, number 5, Light One Up. Tomorrow, of course, is Mother's Day. I've been involved in horse racing for almost 50 years, and believe me, there's simply no better place to take Mom and celebrate the whole family than at the racetrack. Take her out to the great race place, and she will spend an unforgettable day amidst the breathtaking backdrop of Santa Anita Park. We still have special packages available, but tickets are selling out fast. So head over to santanita.com and bring Mom out to an unforgettable day here at the great race place, Santa Anita Park.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
It's a two-horse race at the top of the stretch. It's Caramba and Mei Ling. 3/4 in 1:12 and 4. They're into the stretch. Caramba. Mei Ling down toward the rail continues to fight her with a furlong to run. And they're 10 lengths ahead of Noble and a Beauty. Caramba drifting out through the stretch. Mei Ling clings to her on the inside. It's Caramba and Mei Ling coming down to the line. Mei Ling and Caramba, Caramba and Mei Ling. Here's the wire. Caramba carries the Phipps colors to victory. Mei Ling was second, and then it was America and Noble and the Beauty.
Welcome back to the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires. Mike Penna, Angela Hermann with you right up until 11 a.m. Eastern. That was Larry Colmus with the call of the 2016 running of the Top Flight Handicap at Aqueduct. And who knew at that time, when Caramba was winning that race, that eventually she would go on to be the dam of a Kentucky Derby winner, and that occurred last Saturday beneath the Twin Spires of Churchill Downs. It was a very special moment, a history-making moment that so many people are going to remember for a very long time. 11 times in the storied history of the Kentucky Derby, the winner of that race began his life at Claiborne Farm in Paris, Kentucky, and that is music to the ears of my next guest, Walker Hancock, who will join me momentarily for this week's Kentucky Bred Conversation. This segment presented every week by our friends at the Kentucky Thoroughbred Development and Breeders Incentive Funds, which paid a record $20 million in awards to breeders participating in the KBIF program last year for racing in 2025. Walker, congratulations, my friend.
Thank you, Mike, and thanks for having me on.
How many times have you gone back and watched the replay of that race?
I've lost count, and we'll probably watch a few more times today.
As you should. I mean, what a moment, right? I mean, you think about 11 Kentucky Derby winners raised at Claiborne. Man, what's the secret? How do you keep doing it year after year?
We're just so blessed to have some great clients and great folks that work on the farm. We have a really good team here, and a lot of credit goes to them. We couldn't do it without them, and like I said, the great clients as well throughout the years.
Let's start by talking about the dam, Caramba. Tell me a little bit more about what she is like.
She's a pretty gray Bernardini mare. You're not going to miss her. She has a presence about her. She's fully gray, so she's got the roan spots on her. Very, very unique looking. Very easy mare to be around. She passes that off to her offspring. I read this week where Cherie has said multiple times, and Daisy, how easy this horse and how cool of a horse this is to be around. And I think he gets it from his mother.
Now I have to ask, because she has had, I believe, a colt by Nyquist and a 2-year-old, and then Liam's Map filly. Which one of these two do you think has a little bit more tied to Golden Tempo? Which one reminds you a little bit more of this year's Derby winner?
Definitely the Nyquist colt. He's a very, very nice colt. The reports are early. Obviously, he's only 2, but I would be shocked if he wasn't a runner. He was always very nice around here, and I think he'll hopefully follow in his brother's footsteps.
Walker, what things come to mind when you think about Golden Tempo on the farm as a youngster?
He was a really nice foal, very straightforward, really good-looking, attractive horse. Bay colt, had a presence about him. And then when as he was going through his yearling years, he was always one of those awkward teenage kids that just was never really growing at the right time. Like his back end would grow, and then his front end would grow. He'd grow out, and then he'd grow up. he really never really put it together until towards the end of his time here at the farm, when he was late summer of his yearling year. But I remember, throughout that winter time when he was a yearling, like going to look at him, and he'd have these big fuzzy ears and big long head, and his body just never really matched up. But like I said, he was a great foal, and that's one thing my dad's always said. When they're really good foals, really good individuals like that, don't worry about the growing stages they go through, because they usually always come back. And sure enough, I've seen him here lately a lot, and he's come back to how he was as a foal.
And you talk about him being more of an awkward individual that maybe didn't put things together. Do you think that that's pretty typical of maybe this part of the family? Is he more of an outlier in the family? What do they typically put out there when you see them put out foals?
Carumba puts out really nice foals year in and year out. I mean, the Williams Map yearling filly she has now is very elegant. Not as big and strong as maybe Golden Tempo was at this point, but she's probably a little different, so she might be the outlier actually. But I mean, he never really. You could always tell he had that potential, and no matter what he looked like, you always had hope. Just by the way he was bred, having such a deep pedigree, just knowing the family, you had a lot of high confidence in him being a good racehorse.
Walker, Angela, and I were talking about the fact that you were going to be with us on the program. We were talking about Carumba a little bit yesterday, and one of the things she brought up to me, and I hadn't seen it, she said, did you see his yearling groom and his reaction after he watched Golden Tempo cross the finish line? I didn't see it, but I went back and watched it. Fantastic.
Yeah, that was a genuine reaction. That Bryce Lee is the name of the guy that had him as a yearling, and he followed this horse. Even his first start, he was fired up that he won. So for him to see his old boy win the Kentucky Derby, that had to be an unbelievable feeling for him. So happy for him and his hard work that he's put in with these horses.
That's one of the coolest things, isn't it? The team that's involved with getting these horses to the races. Forget about getting them to the winner's circle beneath the TwinSpires at Churchill Downs on the first Saturday of May, but just getting any horse to the races, it takes a village, and I'm sure that's the case at Claiborne.
Yeah, I mean, there's hundreds of people that went into, him winning the Derby on Saturday. Not necessarily all here, but I know sure he has plenty of people as well. But, I mean, you think about, the broodmare manager that had to track her cycle and set the date to breed her to curl, and then the vet that got her in foal, with the guys that fold them out, and then the foal grooms and the assistant broodmare managers and assistant yearling managers, so it really does take a village, and there's many people that get credit, but we're just so blessed and lucky to have such a great team here.
Walker, when you think about the 10 Derby winners that came before Golden Tempo, I'm sure they're all special, but if you were to walk down a hallway with pictures of each one, and maybe there is something like that there in your office or the offices at Claiborne, and you see all those Kentucky Derby winners, what are some of the memories that come flooding back for you?
So Thunder Gulch was one of the ones that we raced here. That was the first Derby that I can ever remember. I remember where I was when I watched the race. I was a little kid. I think I was 6 or 7 years old. But, we were cheering for him because that was who's from the farm. Obviously, we were always going to cheer for horses from the farm. And, that was a special one. And then Orb, obviously, was a very cool story. The fact that Mr. Phipps was getting up there in age, and, Stuart Janney had been in the business for so long through their families and their cousins, and that they could do it together with Shug and give Shug his first win. That was a really special one. And then certainly this one, Cherie's first female trainer, and Daisy has a partner with the Violas, and she hadn't won a Derby yet really under her tutelage, and the Phipps family silks as well. So it was just a really special day, and so happy for Daisy and Ogden and their family.
That was my next question. That black with the cherry cap, those silks are iconic in thoroughbred racing, and they have been for generations. Talk about that relationship. Claiborne and the Phipps go back a long way.
Long way, yeah. I just playing a little part of it now. It obviously started back in the day with my grandfather, and he actually helped Daisy's grandfather buy this foundation mare. Lady Pitt was her name. I think that was back in the 60s. So I think this is the Golden Tempo is the 7th generation, I'm pretty sure, that's come from that family that's been born on our farm. So there's a lot of history there, not only with this family, but the other great Phipps families over the years. And it's just such a privilege to be associated with them. And it's been such a fantastic relationship, and so very thankful that we can keep it going.
And you do talk about the legacy that the Phipps family has, that Claiborne Farm has, in generations of breeding. How important is it for these legacy breeders to team up with Vinny Violas and different and media figures and get new blood involved in the sport, not just on the fan side, but the ownership side as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think Daisy would tell you that's kind of what saved the stable for now. It allowed her to breed to really good stallions. Not that she wasn't doing that beforehand, but it just freed her up with some more cash, and she can continue to add some value to her pedigrees and bring in new partners and bring in new ideas. And I give her a lot of credit for pivoting to that and turning out so well.
Well, and speaking of that, I mean, I guess it's probably a foregone conclusion, but is Carumba going to be visiting Curlin again anytime soon?
Well, she's in full to Gunrunner, so I'm not sure. Obviously, the plans of we'll just hopefully get a healthy colt or filly on the ground this time next year. But I'll let Daisy tell me where she's going to go for next year. But yeah, if not that, she went to Good Magic last year. She didn't catch. So we were trying to go back to the well there, I guess, with the 3/4 sibling, but it didn't work out. But with Curlin up there in age, I'm not sure what she'll end up doing.
Walker, how are those decisions ultimately made? Is it you sitting down with Daisy and saying, "Hey, here's what I think, here's what I'm seeing," and then she gives you her input, or is it strictly her as the head person, the owner? She says, "Nope, I want to go to this stallion."
Yeah, so I'll tell you exactly how the Golden Tempo works. She came out to the farm in the fall of 2021. She brought some Jersey Mike sandwiches along with her, and we went through her mating list, and that's how Golden Tempo was conceived. So over some lunch at the farm with Jimmy John sandwiches is me, Bradley Purcell, our farm manager, and Daisy. So that obviously worked well. I told her we might have to do that again this year.
Yeah, why not? And, if I recall, Jimmy John's was a sponsor of this program for a long time, and their slogan was freaky fast, freaky good. And I guess you could apply the same thing to Golden Tempo.
Well, sorry, I might have misspoke. I meant to say Jersey Mike's. But,
all right.
Yes.
Well, I can't speak. I don't know. I just see the Eli Manning commercials slogan, with those guys.
It might not be as catchy, but, it was Jersey Mike's.
Walker, man, I am so happy for you. What do you do for an encore here?
We're going to be against cheering them on in the Belmont here in a few weeks. That's exciting. It's been quite a week here at the farm. A lot of people wanted to come out and take pictures and videos and interviews of us and, look at Carumba and the sorts. So this has been an awesome, fun week. Certainly, it's what you kind of it gets you out of bed in the mornings, when you wake up this time of year and you go to the foaling barn and you see these new foals being born, you just hope that one day they might be able to win the Kentucky Derby. And when you actually produce one that does, it's pretty emotional and it's a lot of fun.
Well, and what do you think of the Belmont being at Saratoga? It seemed like such a success last year. And how do you think Golden Temple will handle it?
I think he'll crush it. I think he'll do well. I mean, that's why I think one of the reasons they wanted to skip the Preakness is because they just wanted to make sure he was in the best form he possibly could be for the Belmont. They're New York. The Phippses are Vinny is too, New York people. Daisy grew up going to Saratoga, so I think for her to win the Belmont at Saratoga would be an unbelievable experience. I'm not sure it could top last Saturday, but I think it would come pretty close for her. So I think they made a calculated decision what was best for the horse and what was best for all involved, and that was to skip the Preakness and give him one big shot in Belmont. It's the same distance as the Derby, mile and a quarter. I'm sure there'll be a lot of speed, and he'll be running at the end. It's just going to be whether he can get there.
Walker Hancock from Claiborne joining me here on the Horse Racing Radio Network. Walker, this segment titled The Kentucky Bred Conversation, presented by the Kentucky Thoroughbred Development and Breeders' Incentive Funds. That's a mouthful to say, but you got to walk through it. They do a fantastic job. I can think of very few farms. There are some, but very few that are as tied to racing and to breeding in the bluegrass than Claiborne. What do you, when you talk to people that are not from Kentucky, what do you want them to know about the program?
It's just such a big help, I mean, you get that nice check at the end of the year and pay for a few mistakes. So very thankful for that. Certainly, and hopefully can keep on growing. It's very important that we put money back into the breeders' pockets. That they're what kind of makes this thing go around. Without breeders and horses, we wouldn't have a business. So we need to help out these guys, these breeders, the best we can, and certainly this fund certainly goes a long way towards that.
Walker, I've said it privately. I'll say it to you publicly too. It is a privilege for us here on Horse Racing Radio Network, myself, my wife Michelle, to be associated with Claiborne. You have supported us for a very long time, and I can't thank you enough for all that support, and I couldn't be happier for all the success that you're having, my friend.
I really appreciate that, Mike. You guys do an unbelievable job, and we're proud supporters, and thank you so much for having me on. It's always fun talking to you.
Always a blast. Congratulations. Let's keep it rolling.
Let's do it. Thanks, Mike.
All right, Walker Hancock with this week's Kentucky Bred Conversation. A record $20 million in awards was paid to breeders participating in the Kentucky Thoroughbred Breeders Incentive Fund program last year for racing in 2025. KBIF has provided more than $250 million to breeders of Kentucky breds winning eligible races worldwide since the program was implemented in 2005. Kentucky remains one of the leading racing jurisdictions, paying out $239 million in combined association purse and Kentucky Thoroughbred development funds for an average of more than $112,000 per race and an average field size of 8.8 in 2025. Make sure your horse is KTDF and KBIF eligible to secure your share of lucrative awards worldwide. For more information on thoroughbred racing and breeding in Kentucky, visit KentuckyBreds.com or register KBIF.com. Now, it's a wonderful program. Angela, I just had a thought as we were visiting here with Walker and talking about the dam of Golden Tempo Carumba. Tomorrow is Mother's Day, and we're going to hear more about Carumba later in the show. Kurt Becker's Stroll Through Racing History, presented by Keeneland, comes up at 10:20, and he focuses on the life and the career of Carumba. But with Mother's Day coming up, maybe it would be fun to see some people share some pictures of mares, some of their favorite mares, or mares and foals. That would be kind of cool if you have a mare with a baby by her side, or even just the babies. We love those too, but it's Mother's Day, so I think that might be kind of fun.
Yeah, definitely. Get them out there. If you have a mother in your life, whether she be equine or whether she be human, and you're at the track with her, send us a picture. Take us into your world with your horses, with the mother that you love, and give them a little bit of love online. Yeah,
it'd be cool. You can go post those at HRRN or tweet to us at HRRN with those pictures. You can do it on our Facebook page, Horse Racing Radio Network, or email the show, Mike at horseracingradio.net. Another way you can do it. Might be kind of fun. But a happy Mother's Day to all of the moms throughout HRRN Nation, and I hope you celebrate in a wonderful manner tomorrow with your friends and with your loved ones. Coming up next, our Legends of the Turf, and then a short commercial break. And after this story, we're going to be joined by Hall of Fame jockey Ramon Dominguez. Now, Ramon's going to talk about a new project that he's involved with the Jockeys Guild, but he's also going to look back and share his thoughts on the Kentucky Derby. Should be highly entertaining. That's next after your Legends of the Turf and this short commercial break.
This is the story of a man who was unquestionably one of the very best in the annals of thoroughbred racing at plying his trade in the saddle. His accomplishments as a reinsman were not only noteworthy, but they were watermarks among the riding colony on 2 continents. The sands of the racing hourglass are poured back to the late 19th century to begin this odyssey. The subject of this dissertation first saw the light of day in Cadentown, Kentucky in 1883. He rode his first winter in Chicago in 1899 on a horse called Abenstroke, and he subsequently rode in this country with unrivaled success until 1903. In 1901, he piloted the winner of the Kentucky Derby on a horse named, perhaps fittingly, His Eminence, and the winners of the Latonia Derby, New Orleans Derby, and the Memphis Derby. In point of fact, in his abbreviated American riding career, he had but 4 Kentucky Derby mounts, but never finished out of the money. He won that classic in back-to-back years aboard the aforementioned His Eminence and in 1902 with Allen and Dale. He was 3rd while in the saddle aboard Thrive in 1900 and was 2nd aboard Early in 1903. He rode 161 winners in 1901, a total absolutely unheard of in that day and age, He often said the very best horse he ever rode was McChesney, a horse conditioned by Sam Hildreth. He eventually had a great deal of trouble making American riding weights and opted to cross the big pond, so to speak, to ride in Europe, and there he experienced measured success until 1930. He first rode in Russia, where he won the Russian Derby twice and finished second in that event 4 times in 6 years, while under contract to Mr. M. Lazarev. From 1910 to 1912, he rode in Austria-Hungary for Prince Lubomirski. He then returned to Russia, where he rode from 1913 to 1917. He won the Russian Derby 3 years in a row, 1914, 1915, and 1960, for Leon Montchev, who at the time was one of the wealthiest men in the country. Our man left Russia in 1917 at the inception of that nation's revolution being led by Messrs. Trotsky and Lenin. When he was to leave that country, he went to bid his friend what was to be a fond farewell. Many years later, in 1941, he learned that his friend and benefactor, Mr. Montechev, was washing cars at that time for the Nazis in Paris. The story of our subject's escape from Russia in 1917 would provide more than ample fodder for Jean Le Carre's novel. Many times before escaping to Poland, he crawled on his hands and knees for hours to avoid being shot at by the Bolsheviks. In 1920, he left Warsaw for Paris, and he wound up there riding for Mr. Montechev until 1926. He rode his last race in 1930 at the age of 47. Compositely, he rode over 2,300 winners in this country and in Europe, and he once rode 8 winners out of 11 mounts in Moscow. The vast majority of his victories were scored aboard 2-year-olds because he always hustled them out of the gate, rated them, and then saved something for the finish. European riders, on the other hand, went hell-bent for leather throughout and had nothing left at the end. He always felt, although never able to explain why, that collectively, Australian riders were the best. Our man turned to training in France in the 1930s with horses in training at Maison Lafitte near Paris. When the Second World War broke out, he was forced to disband his stable, and he turned his property over to the French government, which quartered 200 soldiers there. Then, after France's quick defeat, he was forced to quarter Nazi soldiers. On February 25, 1941, he began another portion of his international odyssey that brought him first to Spain, then to Portugal, and finally back to his native America. Having been in Europe for some time, he was fluent in French, German, and Russian, in addition to English. He passed away in 1941 at the nonagenarian age of 91, with not only fond memories of the turf on 2 continents, but with a cumulative riding record that by any measure, means, or standards has to rank among the all-time best. His story has the very fiber of what a legend of the world of racing is all about. He was Jimmy Winkfield.
Race to TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
It's time now to shine the spotlight on the Darley Taking the Reins Performer of the Week.
At the 8th pole, Moonspun still first. In the meantime, Shoot It True comes through toward the inside. Time to Dazzle late rally as well, but it's Moonspun trying to hold, and Moonspun does hold. Moonspun gates her wires.
Moonspun, the daughter of Darley stallion Heartspun, led every step of the way to win the Grade 2 $500,000 Unbridled Sydney Stakes on Friday at Churchill Downs, becoming the latest graded stakes winner for her sire and earning the right to be recognized as your Darley Taking the Reins Performer of the Week. Darley Stallion Heartspun. No active stallion under 100,000 has more career black type horses and graded stakes horses. Learn more about Heartspun and all the Darley Stallions by visiting darleyamerica.com.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
As they move past the 3-ace pole, here's Looking at Lucky and Caracrotato Super Saver battling along between horses. First dude, Jackson Bend, fighting it out there to the inside, looking for a pinhole to run through. Jackson Bend on the inside, there at the top of the stretch. Looking at Lucky, first dude, Caracrotato is next. On the far outside there is Ioana Twist looking to pull a big upset. And also Jackson Bend closing relentlessly in between horses. Jackson Bend looking at Lucky, first dude, and you want to twist on the outside. You're looking at Lucky. You're looking at Lucky in the Preakness to win it by a half length. First dude, Jackson Bend.
Welcome back to the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires. Mike Penna, Angela Hermann with you on this Saturday morning. And Dave Rodman with the call of the Preakness Stakes 16 years ago. That was in 2010, Looking at Lucky getting the victory over First Dude. First Dude, ridden by jockey Ramon Dominguez. And listen, Ramon Dominguez won nearly 5,000 races in his career before that career was cut short because of injury. And he never won a Triple Crown race, which is mind-boggling. And I'm sure that if he had stayed healthy, there would have been plenty of Triple Crown victories to his resume. But think about this. 5 of the 12 entrants in that year's Preakness Stakes came from the Kentucky Derby. That's not going to be the case this year, and it hasn't been the case for a while. Horses from the Derby tending to skip the Preakness. That's what Golden Tempo is going to do. We're going to talk more about that later in the program. But my man, Ramon Dominguez, the Hall of Famer, is with us now here on HRRN. Ramon, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. Good morning, Angela.
Good morning.
So happy to hear your voice again, my friend, and looking forward to this conversation. Let's start by, we're going to get into the Jockeys Guild Education Foundation, which is a program that you are now involved with. We'll talk more about that in a minute. But let's start, since I brought up the Kentucky Derby, let's start by looking back on last weekend's race. What a spectacular moment at the finish, Ramon, when you had the two brothers hit the finish line just a neck apart.
Incredible. It's really what movies are made out of. Amazing that these two top jockeys, to be brothers, but to come at the most important race in North America and perhaps one of the most important races in the world with a finish like that is incredible. Beautiful, and the whole race for both horses was also amazing. The winner, as well as Renegade, finishing second. He had some troubles early on, so definitely a very interesting race, to say the least.
And when you're watching the race as a rider and you see things going along on the front end, pretty quick and snappy up front, at what point during the race did you think, we better start looking towards the back of the pack for the Renegades, for the Golden Tempos, because this is getting a little too hot and heavy for a mile and a quarter?
Yes, I was really more focusing on, I thought I like Chief Wallaby, and I was really pleased with how well he seemed like to be going. I thought that he was in a perfect position, but also he was pulling on his rider, Junior Alvarado. I wasn't overly concerned about the pacing front because that's the Kentucky Derby. People say, oh, they went under 23 seconds. That's something you can expect. And it requires a horse, a justified type of horse, amazing athlete to be able to sustain those kind of fractions. So towards the middle of the race, I did think what you say, Angela, that, okay, it seems like they are going to be coming back some. Who will be making a run? And right away, my eyes, when I realized Chief Wallaby wasn't moving quite the way I wanted, I did notice Turning for Home. The Renegade seems like was a horse that had the best position at that point. And even Turning for Home, still I wasn't looking at the winner, Golden Tempo, because I thought that probably was a little bit too much ground to make up, and what a finish and what a race. I was looking at the past performances, trying to see how far back he was going into the first turn, and I guess I will have to wait for the actual past performance from the racing form because it just showed that he was last. But I will venture to say that he was 20 lengths out of it. He was so far out. But even at the half-mile pole, he was still last. And amazing, really, how much ground he was able to make up.
Ramon, both horses ran tremendously well, Golden Tempo and Renegade. And we mentioned the brothers, Jose, the winner, Irad finishing second and neck behind. From your perspective as a former rider, a Hall of Fame rider, which of the two rides stood out most to you? They both had to overcome some trouble here and there, but which one was the one that really stood out to you?
I would say that both of them were very impressive because Irad, coming out of the gate, he comes out a little bit, and perhaps that's what initiated the bouncing around because he was giving himself a little bit of room to work with, given the fact that he had a one hole. But then typically what happens with race horses, when you put pressure on another horse, even if you are at even terms, what happens for them, in order to keep their balance, they try to retaliate, they try to kind of push back. And I feel like that's what happened once that actually the pressure from the inside went out to the number 4, and the 4 came in, and then it created this domino effect. So certainly Renegade got really bothered quite a bit going into the first turn. And then despite that, Ira was able to put his hands down and allow the horse to relax and work at a very nice trip from there. I was really impressed with Jose, that he was 100% focused on his horse. At no point going into the first turn, he was trying to move his hands or tap the horse on the shoulder to make up a little bit of ground. No, he knew that his best chance to allow the horse to relax, which he did very well. Watching it again, it seems like maybe he was a little too far back, but that's exactly where he needed to be, and Jose knew that. And but as he is progressing, still had to be a little bit like nerve-wracking even for him because he was so far out of it. And I was really impressed with around the turn, putting myself on his boots because there is the aerial view. And I think that I would have chosen to go in between horses, and I would have gotten completely stopped because it appears as 3 horses. There were 2 on the outside and 1 on the inside. That they were coming apart. And perfect, he was saving ground up to that point. I said, okay, there is enough room for you to get through there. But he decided, he probably read it before it happened. I am going to play it safe, and he decided to go out around. And just as he chose to do that, those horses came together. With the momentum that he had, he probably would have had to stop his horse. So he followed his brother at that point, and what a finish from that point, from the last eighth of a mile. It was just incredible, to say the least.
That was laid out so perfectly, and better than anybody could describe their trips, really from start to finish. But also, I wanted to ask you too, beyond those top 2, because obviously they put together fantastic trips and finishes, considering the pace, the bumping, everything the Derby has to offer, who behind them ran a sneaky impressive race to you?
Well, the horse that finished there, I mean, the fact that he was a maiden definitely ran a very gutsy race. I was following the race. I typically follow or pay attention to the jockey's position, and by that I mean their arms and how much hold do they have. When you see a horse at the 5/8 already moving their hands, it's an indication that they don't have really as much horse as they would like to have. That was not the case with both Chief Wallaby and Farther Ado. Both horses were really dragging their jockeys. Chief Wallaby held his own, and he didn't run a disappointing race. I was really surprised with Farther Ado. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his race correctly, but he was dragging Johnny, and he went from really full of run to nothing. So I was more surprised about that than, and that's really where my eyes went towards that middle of the race to the end, looking at those 2 horses. So I still give credit, as I said, to the horse that finished there, with the fact that he was a maiden, and not sure at this point who is looking to run in the Preakness, and perhaps there will be more horses than initially anticipated, with the fact that it was announced that Golden Temple will not be running the Preakness.
Yeah, Ocelli, the horse that finished third, at 70-1. And you talk about Further Ado, Ramon. I think lost in all of this is the fact that he actually went off as the favorite in this year's Kentucky Derby. So another year, of course, in which the favorite does not win the Derby. We had that long stretch of, I believe it was 6 or 7 consecutive years where the favorite won, and now we're in a streak where favorites are not able to get it done on the first Saturday in May. We could talk Derby and Triple Crown with you all day long, but we have another important topic that we have to get into, and that's the Jockeys Guild Education Foundation, which you are now part of. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, this is an initiative by the Loving Family Foundation and Glen Hill Farm. So Claiborne came up with this idea. He's the president and owner of the Glen Hill Farms, and his family has been extremely helpful with society in general, trying to help demographics that are maybe underserved. And he knew that there was a void with the jockeys, given the fact that all of us really start very young and we have to choose between education or going into our trade or developing our skills as a jockey. When the time comes to hang our tag up or whether we're forced to retire, we don't really have the necessary tools to do something outside racing. So his goal was to provide education at no cost for the jockeys, and that's where the Jockeys Guild Education Foundation, the idea came from, and they asked me to be part of it, and I thought that this is a wonderful initiative and happy to be supporting in any way I can.
And what different elements are going to be a part of the foundation to help jockeys into a transition beyond riding in the saddle?
Yeah, great question. So part of the team right now is, and I know that she will be a key factor, a good friend, Gabrielle Kunzelich. She's a professor at University of South Carolina. Understands very, very well horse racing. In fact, she has written many articles for top publications in the sport, and one of the classes that she teaches is the positive impact that Latin American jockeys have had in American racing. So her role, or part of her role, would be is we're going to put out very soon a survey for the jockeys to fill out to gather some data as to what is their background in terms of where they come from, but did they finish high school? And that would be helpful because let's just say, which will be the case for most jockeys, that they didn't even finish high school. So we can help them to get a GED. And then after that, it will be a one-on-one conversation to help them determine what is the direction they want to go, what is the desire that they will have to have in terms of when they finish their career as a jockey, or simultaneously while they're still riding, take classes. So we will be able to offer many different programs from online education on these certifications, as I mentioned, the GED, or basic skill courses, technical and vocational training. We're also in communication with some colleges that to be able to create a program for them to do take classes on equine, whether it is management, if it is on the racetrack, or being a blacksmith. So there is a variety of routes that they can go taking education. But even for the current active jockeys, if they want to take a self-development class, perhaps financial literacy, or take a communication course, all of that will be available. The goal here is to help them professionally and personally to develop themselves the best way possible.
Now, Ramon Dominguez knows firsthand about the challenges that a rider can face after their career comes to an end, especially if it comes to an end abruptly, much the way Ramon's did. Ramon, I got about 30 seconds left before I have to get to a commercial break, but I want to bring this up too. You've now gotten into the podcast world. You've gone from HRRN and Espanol with Potro, and now here you are in the podcast world. Tell me quickly about that.
Yes, this is an idea that I have for a while, just to be able to share incredible stories really all of us possess. So the name of the podcast is Among Champions, and I have had quite a few people, not only inside horse racing but outside as well, that they can share what their journey was to get to the top of their profession or their field, but also equally important, the obstacles that they overcame. So 2 weeks ago, I had the Ortiz brothers. Last week, I had Trevor McCarthy, who talked about the mental health aspect of a jockey. Yesterday, I recorded an episode with Cherry Vote. So it's really great to hear, again, all of the tools that they utilize to be able to overcome the adversity that is unavoidable in life, but how they were able to just go through, push through, and achieve their goals. So I think it's something that will be inspiring to all of us.
Among champions, Ramon Dominguez, a true champion in his own right. Ramon, always a delight to catch up, my friend. Keep it rolling. Congrats on the Education Foundation, and we'll do another segment once things get up and running.
Thank you so much, guys, for having me.
All right, Ramon Dominguez here on HRRN. When I come back, I'll get you ready for hour number 3 and tell you a little bit more about a place you'll want to visit when you get to Lexington, Kentucky. This is the Equine Forum on the Horse Racing Radio Network.
This is HRRN, where racing comes to talk.
Woodford Feed, where tradition merges with technology. Family owned since 1940 and providing exceptional customer service, Woodford Feed specializes in the highest quality feed, using only the finest ingredients to ensure optimal nutrition for your horses. In addition, Woodford Feed can help with all your farm needs, including field seed, fertilizer, and weed control. So whether your horse is sprinting around the racetrack or has a foal by her side, count on Woodford Feed to provide the quality nutrition necessary to perform at the highest level. Woodford Feed, Versailles, Kentucky.
James Brown and Bill Cowher welcoming you back to Dennis Melvin's house. It's time for the Midnight Snack Run.
This is one tricky obstacle course. Sticking to healthy habits in this kitchen is going to take focus and determination, but it can be done, JB.
He's already entered the snack part of the course, and he's eyeballing a jar of chocolatey candy.
That is tempting right off the start.
Uh-oh, he's reaching, Bill, but he pushes it away.
Great stiff arm.
He's approaching a plate of delicious-looking iced cookies.
Oh, Dennis, you only want one of those.
He blows right by him for the apple.
Oh, the fridge. It's make or break time, JB.
He stares down some rich-looking treats. Uh-oh, looks like he's headed for the soda. Wait, he jukes left, grabs the water bottle, and shuts the door with his elbow in record time.
Unbelievable move. I gotta see that again.
And he's out. He even turned off the light.
That's the way you execute a midnight snack run.
Stand Up to Cancer and Rally want you to reduce your risk for cancer.
Go to takeahealthystand.org.
Did you receive a call or message that mentioned Social Security and demanded immediate action? Did the caller know your Social Security number or other personal information and tell you that your Social Security number had been used in connection with the crime? Did you feel worried that your Social Security number might be suspended, your bank account might be frozen or seized, or you could be arrested? That is not the Social Security Administration. Social Security will not threaten you, demand your personal information, or instant payment. Email or text you pictures or documents, or use a real government official's name to gain your trust. Social Security does not accept payments by gift card, prepaid debit card, internet currency, or by mailing cash. Criminals use these forms of payment because they are hard to trace. Do not be fooled. Hang up. Ignore them. Report this criminal activity to the Social Security Administration Office of the Inspector General at oig.ssa.gov.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
Want to get the latest HRRN content directly on your computer or mobile device? Then subscribe to our podcast using the Podbean app or Apple Podcasts. Just go to hrrn.podbean.com on your computer and click follow, or download the Podbean app and search HRRN. You can also find us on Apple Podcasts and listen to our latest episodes anytime. Don't miss a thing. Subscribe to our podcasts today. You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
They're trying to rally outside as they come outside the quarter pole. Honey Dutch has built a 4-length lead. Honey Dutch hits the top of the stretch. Now it's down to 3. Stark Contrast cut loose on the far outside, is up into second and is targeting Honey Dutch with a furlong to go. Alpeland is there, and Remember Mamba's rolling down the top of the turf. Stark Contrast got the jump though. Kick clear by 3. Remember Mamba runs up into second. Honey Dutch, big effort, but third. Stark Contrast got it. 3 lengths in the end. Remember Mamba was second. Honey Dutch was third. Alpeland finished 4th.
Travis Stone with the call. Huge effort from Stark Contrast last weekend in the American Turf. That's a Grade 1, and Stark Contrast becomes the 42nd Grade 1 winner raised or sold since 2000 by our friends at Millridge. And every week I get to tell you about their stallion Aloha West, too, because he's been fantastic, and who knows what the future holds for him. The early signs are super positive. 8 of 10 sold, averaging 80,000 between OBS March and the April sale. And then even more important are the compliments on the quality and willingness of his offspring and belief for the future. So 42 Grade 1 winners raised or sold. You've got Oscar Performance. You got Aloha West. I mean, my goodness, there are so many positive things happening at Mill Ridge right now. So make sure you check them out. And don't forget, too, when you are in Lexington, for whatever reason, over the coming months, check out Tony's of Lexington. You won't want to miss it. I promise you, the best steak you're going to get anywhere is at Tony's of Lexington. They're on Main Street right behind Rupp Arena. But I am going to warn you, get your reservations now looking ahead to your trip because they book up fast. They're that good. But Tony always says they always have room for one more at our table, and they will take care of you at Tony's of Lexington on Main Street right behind Rupp Arena. All right, 1 hour in the books, 2 more to go. Mike Penna, Angela Hermann. We're going to tell you all about Hour 2 when we return after this 10-second pause for station identification. This is the Horse Racing Radio Network, where racing comes to talk.
This is the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires.
1 hour down, 2 to go here on this week's edition of the Equine Forum, wrapping up last week's Kentucky Derby and looking ahead to the Preakness Stakes. We will do that later in the program. Mike Penna joined by freshly minted co-host Angela Hermann, who you're going to hear every single Saturday morning with me here on the Equine Forum going forward. Going to be a lot of fun. We'll get into a whole bunch of topics over the coming weeks. But if you missed any portion of what we talked about in the first hour of the program, that Kentucky-bred conversation with Walker Hancock from Claiborne, or that really insightful interview with Hall of Fame jockey Ramon Dominguez, all you have to do is head back to our website, horseracingradio.net. After we finish up at 11 a.m. Eastern, you can listen to the podcast whenever you get some time. And you can do that, too, on your favorite podcast platform. Wherever you get your podcast, type in Horse Racing Radio Network and follow along with this show and all the shows we produce every single week for you here on HRRN. Angela, coming up in the second hour, we're going to get a chance to visit with jockey Jose Ortiz, the Kentucky Derby winner. Chad Brown is going to be with us right around 9:20 to talk about the Kentucky Oaks and Always a Runner. And then you and I will spend some time looking ahead to potential candidates pointing for the middle jewel, the Preakness Stakes. And then, of course, we segue into Hour 3 with the TwinSpires Triple Play and Joe Kristufek, who will have 3 races for our listeners to keep an eye on this afternoon. Kurt Becker's Stroll Through Racing History coming up at 10:20, and at 10:30, Dale Romans' Tim Wilkin will join us for this week's I Ask, They Answer as we wind down the show. We are efforting Jose Ortiz at the moment. But, Angela, let me ask you about what we just heard from Ramon Dominguez a short time ago. How awesome was it to listen to Ramon walk through what he saw from the jockey perspective with Renegade and with Golden Tempo?
Well, we all watch the same race, right? But we all see it so differently. And seeing it through the eyes of a rider, mentioning the little things like with 5 Ace, if he's moving, and just pointing out the intricacies that do make a difference. It makes you look at races differently altogether when you watch them back. Just seeing the little things, the effort put in by the riders. Maybe they're in earlier than you noticed the first time around. And with a field that big, you're probably going to find something different every time that you watch it back. But it was really great to get his thoughts on that. And also on an upcoming initiative that is so important, I think, to our riders, not just, in their daily lives, but in their futures as well.
Yeah. The one thing that stood out is he was talking about the run that Golden Tempo made, and he was watching the feed from above and hearing him say that he probably would have made the decision to go in between horses, whereas Jose said, no, I'm going to keep him on the outside, and it worked out perfectly for Jose Ortiz. But to hear Ramon Dominguez say, I probably would have tried to go in between, and I would have gotten stopped cold because it would have been the wrong move, Jose Ortiz made every right move.
Right, and you needed that from as far back as they were to make all of the right moves and get up at the exact right time. I'm curious to actually ask him, is it more difficult for him to make that kind of ride or to ration a horse on the front end, especially when it comes to a race like the Derby? Everybody's perspective is different, like I said, and I'd love to hear his.
Well, we can do it now because Jose Ortiz is indeed with us, the Derby winner. Jose, good morning, my friend. You just heard Angela talking about the question she wants to ask you. Which one is it? Which one's more challenging?
Good morning, Mike. Good morning, Angela.
Good morning.
Can she say the question again?
Yeah, for you, you had to come from all the way at the back with Golden Tempo, but is it more difficult for you to time a ride and get the luck with a horse like that, or to ration a 3-year-old speed out on the front end and keep him going the whole way?
Honestly, I'd rather be where I was with him because I get to make my move when I want, instead when somebody else pushing me along.
Jose, we were just visiting with Ramon Dominguez in the first hour of the program, and he was complimenting both you and your brother on the tremendous rides that both of you gave your horses in the Derby. But he talked about how he would have made a different decision than you did, and it would have been the wrong decision. He would have gotten stopped, and he was complimenting you on the great decisions you made throughout the race. Walk me through your trip.
Yeah, obviously I was back in the pack. That's what I wanted to be. And around the second turn, my horse started going forward, responding good, and I saw Renegade moving very good as well. So I was just waiting. I didn't want to make an early move and try to go inside to save ground or something like that when the right move was going outside, following Renegade. And that's what I did. I was just had to wait for the right time to let him go. Yeah, but it was a lot of traffic inside, so I didn't want to get him stopped.
As you're coming down the stretch, I'm assuming you knew that was Renegade that you were trying to run down?
Yes.
So you hit the wire, that beautiful moment with you and your brother congratulating you. I know that had to be bittersweet. I know you were so excited for yourself, but to deny your brother his chance at the Kentucky Derby. Explain what the emotions were like.
Yeah, at the moment I was just happy for me and that I got the win on the Derby, but after, a little bittersweet for sure, because I know it's his dream as well, and he has worked very hard, so he deserved to win one, and hopefully he got it.
Well, you had one heck of an Oaks Day. I mean, 5 wins on Friday, Oaks Day. Then you get to Saturday, and going to the Derby, I mean, you obviously had been reading the track perfectly. How did you think it was going to affect Golden Tempo? How did you think he was going to take to it?
I thought I was riding in a good form the whole week, so I was very happy with that, of course. Yeah. And the horses were running good. Even the ones that got beat, they were running very good. And the rides were good, which is the most I care. I get paid to go out there and ride good races. So I was very happy that I could do that all week. And, yeah, I knew Golden Tempo, it was kind of different because the race is different, 20, 19 horses. I just wanted to be patient and make one run in the second half of the race. That's what I did, and I'm very happy it worked out.
It's a very well-timed run by him. Now, we did talk to the connections of Golden Tempo with Claiborne Farm, talking about his early life and how he put things together kind of as he was leaving the farm. But you've been aboard Golden Tempo for quite some time. Tell us about his progression through his training from the maiden win up to the Derby. How has he come along from his rider's perspective?
Yeah, I mean, he won first time out very nicely, coming from the back, little green, broke bad. So I was expecting him to grow mentally and put me closer in the next races, but we found out that was just his style. And, yeah, we don't want to rush him early on. And honestly, before the first race, I never worked him before, so I started working, getting on him after he broke his maiden. And, he's never been a flashy horse. He don't work great, he don't pull. He's very classy. He does everything the right way. And we decided to add the blinkers to see if he put us a little bit into the race more, but he didn't. And he was running in spots in the races, so we decided to keep him on. And I think everything clicked on Saturday, and we were very happy that it did.
It certainly clicked. Everything came together. Jose, Michelle and I, my wife Michelle and I, have known you and your brother Irad for many years now, and it's been so wonderful to watch your careers develop and to see you both get to the levels that you've gotten to in your careers. And when you were coming back aboard Golden Tempo, you were being interviewed by Donna Brothers, and then you got to the winner's circle and you kept lifting your cap and kind of saluting the crowd and looking up to the heavens. What were those moments like for you as you were coming back and coming to that coveted Derby winner's circle?
Yeah, the crowd, they were making a lot of noise. Just being thankful for them. I really love when we have big crowds like that, and just saying thank you, basically. It was a great moment, honestly. I wish I can go back to that because we felt amazing.
Yeah, I'm sure. We were smiling from ear to ear, so happy for you and what you were able to accomplish. What has the past week been like for you? I know you made a trip to Yankee Stadium.
I did yesterday. I left in the morning, came back in the afternoon to ride in the twilight racing. So it was kind of a long day, but it was a good one. The experience I had in Yankee Stadium was unbelievable, honestly. Never thought I would make it there.
Yeah, and your cousin Elmer Rodriguez is part of that team too, and that was cool to be out there and to see you.
Yep, yeah, he does, yeah.
Well, both you and Cherie were on the mound together. I saw a little more wind up from you. Did you both make it to home plate, and did yours go further? It kind of looked like it was going to go a little farther than Cherie's ball.
Yeah, we made it.
Jose threw a perfect strike. It was right down the middle.
Oh,
yeah, it was pretty good.
Did you have to practice it all before you got there?
Nah, I'm natural, man.
Did you grow up wanting to play baseball?
I played baseball since I was until I was 16.
I mean, was it always your dream maybe to play at a higher level?
Oh yeah, baseball.
Were you a pitcher?
Nah, I used to play shortstop.
Who was the better baseball player, you or your brother?
I am. That's easy question.
Do you guys still play once in a while?
Huh?
Do you guys still play once in a while?
Yeah, we play catch. It's hard to get a real game going. It's 9-9. We need 18 people.
I'm sure you could ask around at least up here. I could get you a baseball game together in Minnesota if you ever come visit.
Were you a Yankees fan growing up?
No. I like baseball overall.
Yeah, I love it.
Do you have a team now?
Was that the most exciting thing you did this week outside of all your appearances on different programs?
Yeah, it was, yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Does winning the Kentucky Derby change – well, I know it changes some things, but what are the most significant changes that a jockey experiences after winning the Kentucky Derby, Jose?
I don't know, Mike. I've never won it before.
Yeah, it's only been a week, right?
We'll find out.
It's only been a week.
All right.
Hopefully, you get more recognition. Hopefully, you get on better horses. But I can't complain because I've been getting on great horses almost entire my career. So, I can't complain.
Now, I have to ask you one out of left field. I got asked to ask you by some friends of yours if you are indeed going down the cattle farming route. I know that you have a farm in Kentucky, and rather than horses, you were maybe talking about going with cows. So which way are we going with the farm?
No, I love Dorper sheep, so I want to have, I don't know, about 10 or 20 of them. So, but not yet. I'm working on it.
Jose, you're the best, man. We really appreciate you taking a little time with us here today, and it was, again, so rewarding for all of us who have gotten to know you and your brother over the years to see what occurred beneath those TwinSpires. I know your brother has one in his future, but as long as you're in the race, I'm sure you're going to be looking to get back there again for another one. But really appreciate the time. Congratulations on all your success, my friend.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Angela. Have a good day.
Congratulations.
Jose Ortiz here. You know, Jose just called me Michael. Very few people actually call me Michael. Usually my mother is the only one allowed to do that, but I'll let the Derby-winning jockey call me Michael. It's okay.
Yeah, I would let it slide, too. I promise I will never call you Michael.
He's great. I mean, just so much fun, and you know, you can kind of just have a conversation with the guy. It doesn't have to be a formal interview like that. And man, he's just so fantastic. I remember sitting down with Jose and Arad for a hour-long interview at Saratoga when they were really just kind of bursting onto the scene, and they did it together, and it was so much fun.
And it seems like they really enjoy competing with each other, but also really have a lot of fun when the other one wins. You can still get the feel from Jose that he's still got a little space on cloud nine. I think he's really enjoying this, and that comes through. That energy is infectious, and I hope that it carries on as long as possible for him.
Yeah, my question was maybe a little premature when I asked him how it changes a jockey's life after he wins the Derby. He's only been the Derby winner for a week.
Yeah, maybe we'll ask him that a few months down the road and see if we get a more definitive answer. But for now, still probably floating on the high.
Yeah, great stuff. He rode the Kentucky Oaks winner for Chad Brown. That's always a runner. Chad's coming up in our next segment here in just a few minutes. Looking forward to visiting with him to look back on that moment. And Jose Ortiz has ridden for Chad Brown for a long time. They have a great relationship, so we can get into that with Chad in the next segment too.
Yeah, we got a lot to talk about. I mean, still left over from Kentucky Oaks and Kentucky Derby week, even a week later.
All right, your impossible trivia question presented by Mojo Racing this morning, if you missed it at the top of the show. In the years 1917 and 1922, it was literally impossible for a horse to win the Triple Crown. What made it impossible in those two specific years? Think about that one for a minute and get your mojo working. We'll have the answer coming up at the end of the program right around 10:55 Eastern Time. As I mentioned, Chad Brown set to join us next. This is the Equine Forum presented by TwinSpires on HRRN.
Race to TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
The National HBPA is continuously working to protect the health and welfare of horses by advocating and funding research to help reduce equine injuries, lobbying for a national testing lab to oversee and establish absolute uniform laboratory protocols, advocating for every track to undergo an annual independent surface assessment, passionately supporting off-the-track thoroughbred retirement facilities and adoption groups, and so much more. See additional HBPA initiatives at nationalhbpa.com.
When a racehorse runs at full speed, the lungs are exposed to extraordinary stress. With every stride, powerful negative pressures pull air into the lungs, placing strain on delicate pulmonary blood vessels. These forces are one reason exercise-induced pulmonary hemorrhage occurs in racehorses. Flair nasal strips help support the nasal passages and reduce airway resistance, lowering the work of breathing and the negative pressures transmitted to the lungs. In controlled studies, Flair has been shown to reduce the severity of EIPH. Flair nasal strips. Performance starts at the nose.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
As they hit the top of the stretch, Explorer heads for home, meaning to the attack. Always a runner closing stoutly down the center of the racetrack. Farther back, it's Percy's Bar, Counting Stars down inside. 1 furlong to go. Meaning's up for the lead. Always a runner runs at her. And here's Always a Runner up for the lead. Always a Runner in the race for the Lilies. Under the lights, wins the Oaks by a length in the end. Meaning was second, Counting Stars, Explorer, Prom Queen too late.
Travis Stone with the call of the Kentucky Oaks last Friday. Won by Chad Brown. Jose Ortiz was in the saddle. You're going to hear from Chad Brown coming up momentarily. We are efforting Chad and hoping to have him join us shortly. You know, he didn't just win the Kentucky Oaks. He also took the Modesty with Kathy and Marissa, also ridden by Jose Ortiz. They are a very powerful team, and that was evident last Friday, May 1st at Churchill Downs. That Oaks win by Always a Runner, Angela, that was as impressive a race as you're going to see from a horse in their third lifetime start in a Grade 1.
And to fine-tune her to make the improvement and make the big step forward, like you mentioned in Start 3, is quite the training feat, no matter what raw materials you have and what talent you have with a horse. To get them to the Oaks and to have them ready to beat a full field like that, hats off to getting Always a Runner in the shape that she was. And getting some breaks, but really kind of making her own too. Always a Runner just ran an ultra solid race, and it took a big one to run down Meaning, but she definitely got the job done.
Yeah, we're going to hear a lot more from Always a Runner down the road in this division. Certainly, she's the leader in this 3-year-old filly division, but when they start, I did a radio interview prior to the Kentucky Derby, and I was asked about the 3-year-old crop and if it was too early to start judging this 3-year-old crop, whether it's colts or fillies. And I always say that you can't start casting judgment accurately on a 3-year-old crop, whether it's males or females, until they start facing older horses later in the season. Do you believe that?
I absolutely do, and it always ends up being a hindsight evaluation. But I would say, at least where we stand now, I think it's pretty indicative how evenly matched some of the top contenders are in both of these groups by the lack of a huge favorite in either one of them. I think even 5-1 is still generous for a Derby or an Oaks favorite. And when you look at the chart for the Oaks, the top 6 or 7 finishers were all in the 5 to 7-1 range. And when you get to the Derby, it should be, I guess, a little bit more like that just by virtue of a bigger field. But it still, I think, outlines what a good set of races that we're going to have coming up with this group. And you do have the late developers. I myself was not a huge fan of either of the juvenile crops that contested the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies and Juvenile last year. I was looking for latecomers, and that seems to have maybe been a better formula this particular year. But like you said, to see how this 3-year-old crop stacks up overall is a question that does have to be answered down the road.
Let me ask you this question. And it's our poll question, by the way. I should give it out again. Our poll question is, which Derby runner, other than Golden Tempo and Renegade, are you most excited to see run again? So for you, Angela, which one stood out to you?
Well, I'm going to pick this answer apart with 2 things, because the one that I'm most looking forward to seeing again is the horse that I picked, because Ramon Dominguez outlined it. I thought that Chief Wallaby maybe has a bit more to him with just a bit cleaner run. He's not going to have to face the circumstances that he faced a week ago. He's not going to have to do that again. But I think that he can still handle the distance. I still think he's a classy enough horse, and I still think he can make his own trip against some other horses who maybe need a little bit of help in that respect. But the horse that I was most impressed by the effort that he put in, I guess, would be Dan and Bourbon. And whether we see him again, he ran awesome. And for him to hang on the way that he did, to show the grit to hang on towards the end, even with horses flying at him from the back, he ran lights out. And even if we don't see him anytime in the near future, I do hope that we see him again in some sort of global stage, because he did put in a great effort, and he too was a bit on the inexperienced end. So bright futures for both of them, but I think we're more likely to see Chief Wallaby, and a better Chief Wallaby, sometime soon.
Yeah, I also like the effort from Chief Wallaby, and I maybe because I'm biased a little bit because I picked him to win the race, but I thought he ran really well, very credible in defeat. There's always those horses that finish further back that, how about Further Ado? I mentioned that he ended up going off the favorite. A lot of people probably won't realize that, because that favoritism role was going back and forth as we got closer to post time, and it kept going between Renegade and Further Ado and Commandment, and then Chief Wallaby was in the mix, and then he kind of dropped back a little bit in the wagering. But Further Ado ends up going off the favorite, and as Ramon said, and Johnny said it after the race, he had something for a little bit, and then he just had nothing when the real running started.
It was very surprising, and I just thought that maybe he would last a bit longer than that. But you also, there's so much that takes out horses in the course of the running. Little bumps start to add up. Traffic jams, wide trips, it all starts to really compound as you get to especially like those last 2 furlongs. And I think that a lot of excuses will be very valid for a lot of the field, but I think that he definitely, I don't know, maybe.
Do you think he bounced?
I think that I want to see him again at Keeneland, because I wonder if he's just an insane Keeneland lover and he can run out of his mind there and comes back to earth when he leaves Keeneland. So that would be my guess with him up to this point. But Further Ado is going to get better. A lot of these are going to get better and do different things. There's going to be some turf horses among these. There's going to be some synthetic specialists. So seeing how, again, they are as a group, I think they're going to have to go do some other things besides do a 1.25 miles. This isn't a group full of genuine 1.25 miles horses. So I'll be curious to see where they scatter to, I guess, next.
Which horse then was maybe most disappointing in defeat?
Ooh, I would maybe say So Happy, but So Happy was involved in the early running, and I guess maybe I thought that he had the trip that he wanted, though. I thought that it was a little wide, but still kept him out of trouble, kept him in the running, kept him there for the fight, and you couldn't help but root for So Happy a little bit when you did see him close to the front coming for home, but then you also saw the needle pretty dang close to E, so I think that it's not anything that So Happy needs to worry about going down the road. Again, they're not going to have to do this sort of thing. And I think at home especially, he's going to make his presence felt when it comes to any distance of race. Obviously, he can do the short thing. He can go 2 turns. So this isn't the end of the line for him. But I thought that he would maybe hang on a little bit better, provided the trip that he had.
He ran well. I think his pedigree maybe caught up to him, being a son of Run Happy, not really bred, at least on the top side, to go 1.25 miles. And I think that showed. He was in a great spot. Yeah, you can say what you want about the fractions, that they were quick and all of those things, but he was where, as you said, where he wanted to be. And then just the distance, I think, just caught up with him, as many people were fearful that it might. For me, Commandment is the one that I would have liked to have seen run better. Now, he made his run. He was kind of in the mix as they were coming to the top of the stretch, and then he just kind of like Further Ado just came up empty. I would have expected maybe a little more fight from Commandment.
And that does happen to more horses than not. And he also ran some really gutsy races down in Florida. So thinking that maybe he put in a big effort down there and put in a couple of big efforts, no surprise to see that effort maybe not last all the way here. And maybe he did regress just a touch, but you know that he can do this sort of thing. And that Commandment is going to find a spot that maybe suits him a bit better, even if he just goes back to Florida. I mean, Commandment doesn't have, this isn't the end of the line for Commandment. I would be disappointed in his run too, maybe if I bet on him, because it looked like he too had what he needed for success, but he had also run very hard leading up to the Derby, so I'm not too surprised at that.
Yeah, I was a little concerned with that too. I was a Commandment fan, and I did use him in my wagers, but I was a little concerned that maybe I like the fact that he was battle tested. I did like that.
Yeah.
Unlike Further Ado, who had drawn off and won impressively in a lot of his races, I like that Commandment wasn't going to shy away from a fight if he got hooked in the stretch. But I wonder if all of that fighting and battling that he had to do in those races leading up to the Kentucky Derby just caught up to him in the final 1/8 of a mile or so. It kind of looked like maybe that was the case.
Yeah, and that could be. And it happens to a lot of good horses when it comes to the Derby. And it can be that you find out in the future they're not a fan of Churchill. Some horses absolutely hate it. Looking at you, Skip Away. But there's definitely different factors that might have accounted for a lot of the performances. And going back to Further Ado, we need not overlook that the Breeders' Cup is going to be at Keeneland this year. So,
no, I mean, his connections definitely haven't overlooked that fact.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think that losing the Derby, at least for him, is maybe a total letdown. There's bigger things coming for a horse that likes Keeneland as much as he does and that can handle 2 turns like he does. So I think he's going to be one of the ones that I do watch going forward for the long term. But for the short term, Chief Wallaby is the one that I think is going to step up, and he's going to find a shining moment sometime in the next couple of months.
The other cool thing, and I did this during a segment with Dale and Tim on I Ask They Answer a couple of weeks ago. I asked them which trainer was more likely to finish in front of the other with their horses in the Kentucky Derby? Would it be the Hall of Famer Bill Mott or his son Riley? And both of them leaned toward Bill Mott with Chief Wallaby. And, of course, that made sense because Chief Wallaby was more highly regarded than the two that Riley was going to send out. But you got to tip your hat. Now, Bill Mott ended up getting the better of his son because Chief Wallaby finishes 4th. Incredible was 6th, and Albus was further back. I think he finished like 15th. But you got to tip your hat to the way that Incredible ran and the job that Riley did getting him ready for this engagement in his first Kentucky Derby.
Right, he was running at the end of everything and coming right along with the Renegade and Golden Tempo. But you get lost in the shuffle, I suppose, when the Exacta comes from the outside and sweeps by everybody. But Incredible kind of shut me up, I suppose, with my questions that I had coming out of Colonial. That track gets pretty quick when it comes to Virginia Derby weekend, but Incredible backed it up. And Incredible, I think, is one that definitely has some options if he wants to escape this particular group of 3-year-olds. And they have a bright future with him trying different surfaces, I would imagine. But Incredible still, I thought, outran his odds and outran my opinion of him. So hats off to the Motts for having their horses ready, just going up against a couple of very tough closers in this particular heat.
Our poll question this morning, which Kentucky Derby runner other than Golden Tempo and Renegade are you most excited to see run again coming out of this year's Derby? You can go to @HRRN to let us know your vote there. Just type in your name of the horse that you're looking forward to seeing. You can do that too, Horse Racing Radio Network on Facebook, or you can email the show, mike@horseracingradio.net. And we're encouraging you, with Mother's Day being tomorrow, to send us pictures of your favorite mares, or maybe mares with foals by their side, or maybe even just the babies, however you want to play this. But Mother's Day is coming up. We want to recognize all of the moms throughout HRN Nation. Maybe it's you at the races with your mom. You can do that on our social media pages. Just tag @HRN, and we'll look forward to seeing all of those pictures. A very special day tomorrow for all the moms. And I'm sure we're going to get some great mare pictures too.
Oh, I'm sure. And this is the time of the season where the foals are getting out and being able to go outside and at their most adorable, just running around in the fields and really getting a feel for what they're about to do in the future and making laps around their fields. It is so, so fun to watch as these little horses grow into the athletes that they're going to be. Seeing the baby pictures of Golden Tempo, seeing all of the Derby contenders when they were young. Oh, it's hard to imagine that they're going to become the athletes that they are when you see them like that, but we would love to see any that are in your life.
Yep, we'd love to see that. So keep those coming, and we'll look forward to seeing those and sharing them on our social media pages for you here this morning. We told you we are efforting Chad Brown. This is a busy time for these trainers. They're working at this time. We appreciate any time they can give us, but Chad may have gotten a little tied up. We'll get a chance to hopefully hear from him in our next segment, but we're going to go ahead and get to another commercial break. When we come back, we'll start to look ahead to the Preakness and talk about some of the contenders we're looking at seeing next Saturday. And if Chad does get free, we'll get him on the line with us, and we'll look back on his win in the Kentucky Oaks and look ahead to the Preakness with him as well. This is the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on HRRN, Horse Racing's voice.
This is HRRN, where racing comes to talk.
Race to TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Monmouth Park is back with racing every weekend, May 9th to September 13th, plus Memorial Day and Labor Day Monday. Haskell Preview Day is June 13th, followed by Haskell Day on July 18th. Exciting new wagers include a $3 all-turf pick 3, $3 late pick 3, and a $5 late double, all with player-friendly 15% takeout. Monmouth also offers the country's premier handicapping contest schedule, fixed odds wagering, and a brand new sportsbook. Go to monmouthpark.com for more information.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, Presented by TwinSpires.
They straighten away after 3 quarters. In 1 minute 10.98 seconds, Crown the Buckeye. A furlong away from finishing them off with Sheriff Loveberry. Crown the Buckeye is a 3-length leader as they come down toward the final 16th from Chip Poncho. Liberty National finishing up well toward the inside. Quality Mischief also trying to join these at the finish. It's Crown the Buckeye. Crown the Buckeye near home. Chip Poncho on the outside getting up. Chip Poncho! Chip Poncho has won it in the final strides in the Gunrunner Stakes. Then close, Crown the Buckeye was joined at the finish by Liberty National and Quality Mischief too.
John Dooley with the call. The Gunrunner Stakes going to Chip Poncho, defeating a horse you may have heard about over the past week or so, Golden Tempo. They kept knocking heads down in Louisiana, so at least from a company standpoint, you have to think Chip Poncho's in a pretty good position going into this year's Preakness Stakes. We'll see him in action next Saturday. Mike Penna, Angela Hermann with you here on the Equine Forum presented by TwinSpires. Angela, what do you make of Chip Poncho?
Chip Poncho closed at 25-1. I was surprised about that in the future pool because Chip Poncho has speed, and he has speed that he can carry. That's always seemed to be a big deal at the Preakness. Now, being at Laurel, I probably wouldn't give him the edge that I normally would. But Chip Poncho comes from the fairgrounds, and if you judge him by the company they keep, obviously you have to give him a long look just because he was close to Golden Tempo when they faced off in the Lecomte. You know, he went the whole dance too. The Lecomte, the Risen Star, the Louisiana Derby, and he nearly came out with a couple of wins among those stakes. He won the Gunrunner and ran his eyeballs out in the Risen Star. I know that he seems to be a bit reliant on being a part of the pace. That's my problem with Chip Poncho because at least of the horses that look like they're going to go that way, it looks like another challenging, if not fast pace.
Yeah, I think so too. I think you're right. But I think what plays into it more is you get a smaller field with a cleaner trip for these horses in the Preakness Stakes than you do in the Kentucky Derby.
That's very true. That's very true. And being that it's going to be all fresh faces this year, you have to handle it as a whole new batch and look at it as a whole different pace because I didn't think it was going to be as quick as it was in the Derby, but it just ends up happening that way. When horses are looking for good trips, people want to stay out of trouble, use themselves a little bit more early than they would like to. And in sorting through some of the prices that came along, and it wasn't, I mean, you could get a good number on just about everybody, and there's a lot of horses that ran in the Derby that aren't going to show back up in here. So that would have actually been the play. I wish I would have got in on that because, I mean, when you look up and down this field, I find a more balanced group maybe than I thought I would, but still a little bit heavy on the speed. So finding somebody who will come from off the pace and maybe even a local would be a good idea in this. I'm going to be very curious to see who does throw their hat in the ring maybe as a curveball with this Preakness Stakes.
Yeah, what about Taj Mahal? Is Taj Mahal, I think that is one of the horses one of the local horses anyway, pointing to the Preakness.
Yeah, and Taj Mahal has taken the traditional route to get there, but he's speed, and he's not that quick yet, but he did debut and win at 6, so you have to think that there's a bit more to him early. They just haven't had to use it. You know that he can handle it, and you know he can handle a wet track, which is always a factor when you come to Maryland racing, but something's got to give between these guys.
We've spent a lot of time talking about and celebrating the Kentucky Derby winner on the show here this morning and talking about some of the horses we're looking forward to see run that maybe didn't run their race on the first Saturday in May. But one of the horses and the connections that you really have to feel for is Great White, who came within moments of entering the starting gate and fulfilling that dream of taking his connections to the Kentucky Derby. And he flips behind the starting gate, lands on his side, and they end up scratching him at the gate. He's going to go to the Preakness next week. We'll get a chance to see him. And, you know, you find yourself, at least I do anyway, cheering for a horse like that because of how close his connections came to living their dream and having it snatched away right at the waning minutes right before the race.
Oh, I know. It's like getting to the one and fumbling. I can't.
Yes.
I can't imagine the feeling just sitting there. I mean, you got the butterflies in your stomach. You see the horse behind the gate, and then all of a sudden, even if they didn't have a vantage point of it, imagine seeing that going across the toe board. I am absolutely with you. I feel for the connections of Great White, and he's come out of it just fine. It's just the question of dirt. It was the question of dirt. It will continue to be the question of dirt with him. But at least to get a fair shot at it, because they know they have a horse with quality. It's just whether or not they have a dirt horse of that quality. I want them to find out, and I think that Great White is another one who could benefit, actually, from this sort of setup with the horses that he has that might be need the lead sorts. Great White isn't that sort of horse. That's just a hurdle that he has to overcome in proving that he can handle the dirt. But I would almost prefer this sort of race for Great White rather than all the kickback, all the horses, everything that he had to deal with, the outside post at Churchill. It might very well wind up being a better deal for him altogether to be at the Preakness.
I agree. I don't think he had much of a chance to make an impact in the Kentucky Derby. And maybe this is somewhat of a blessing in disguise, if you will, right? Where if he runs in the Derby, probably like almost all the Derby connections, maybe they say, okay, we're going to give him some time off. We're not going to go to the Preakness. But now he ends up in the Preakness, and maybe this works out in his favor. And even if he doesn't win, he runs a huge race in the Preakness and hits the board. You know, he looked good winning the Battaglia Memorial, and he gutted out that win to hold off full effort by a neck, but he stalked the pace. As you said, not a need the lead type. He stalked the pace. In his maiden win back in December last year, he came from further back. He was 6th in the 12-horse field, so kind of mid-pack, and then ended up drawing off to win by a couple of lengths that day. But in the Bluegrass, his first try on dirt, he ends up going to the lead, going head-to-head for the lead, and ends up backing up and finishing 5th. You got to think that they're going to try to get him to relax a little bit just off the pace in the Preakness.
I would think, unless he draws the rail and his hand gets pressed, Great White should be in another good position. And yeah, you mentioned that this would be a silver lining. I think that this would be just overall better, and I hope that the connections get to truly enjoy the full experience. Like you said, the Bluegrass, not so much to plan, although you can take Further Ado out of the mix. The 11 lengths doesn't make it look quite so bad, but just to have the thrill of watching your horse go into the gate for a Triple Crown race after you've earned your way to be there. They bought this horse for $55,000. It's not like they had Derby dreams necessarily once that gavel fell, but
no, but they were so close.
I know, that's what I'm saying. You gotta actually get the experience out of that. And I hope that they do at the Preakness, and I just hope that things go smooth for Great White, win or lose.
Yeah, I would agree. Anybody else that you're going to have your eye on looking ahead to the Preakness Stakes next Saturday?
Like I said, I'm waiting for a curveball to come from one of the locals, maybe a horse that can storm from last again at Laurel. I'm just curious to see who does actually line up for it, because looking at the future pool, you can already say, nope. So however it ends up being drawn out, I would have to see how everything shakes out in particular as far as posts.
Again, we were hoping to hear from Chad Brown. Apparently, he's busy here this morning, not going to be able to join us, it looks like. But Iron Honor is a horse that is considered probable to go in the Preakness Stakes, and maybe even more likely right now. What do you do with Iron Honor?
It's tough to say what happened. I wanted to ask him about the Wood Memorial. You know, there was some bumping, obviously not the ideal trip, but still, he wasn't even involved in the race early like he was in the Gotham. So if he can revert back to that, even if he can sit in the second flight, if he's willing to sit behind horses, Iron Honor and Great White don't look that different, at least as far as their ideal style on paper. Iron Honor is just the goods on the dirt. So I wouldn't count him out of anything. I'm curious to see what changes they've made out of the Wood Memorial, and to see, I guess, what tactics they think Iron Honor would take on at this particular juncture. But I don't see anything wrong at all with his style and with what he's put forth. Just needs to run a little bit faster, and he's got it done. That's very, very doable in start 4.
How about Napoleon Solo?
Napoleon Solo is another pace horse, and they just worked him lights out again. But running too fast in the Champagne, I have to wonder what exactly happen, and what do they need to get back to that Napoleon Solo, because he still has the speed and it looks like he's still got the class. It's not like he was hopelessly beaten in the Wood Memorial. but I keep singing the same tune. I don't know about Napoleon Solo going this long with that much pace pressure, considering he's already dipped his toes in a couple of times with this competition. Just Napoleon Solo as a Champagne winner is a much different Napoleon Solo than we've seen as a 3-year-old. I do lean towards the late bloomers. I don't think Napoleon Solo is that, so he is a horse that, unless things change dramatically, I will be passing on.
Danny Gargan is sending Talkin to the Preakness, expected to enter him in this year's Middle Jewel. Third in the Bluegrass last time out, behind Further Ado and Otinho. Do you like Talkin?
I need Talkin to run a lot faster. If I need Iron Honor to run a little bit faster, I need Talkin to run a lot faster. He just seems to settle in at one speed. He gets himself a good position. I like that part of it. The pedigree is there. He doesn't need to take his track with him. He can go up and win at Saratoga. He can put in a good effort at Keeneland, but still, Talkin just hasn't made enough moves late in his races. I want a better finish in the Tampa Bay Derby, a better finish in the Remsen. You can say that, he's still coming at the end, but other than Renegade, who beat him by a mile, they weren't horses that were making noise in the stretch of the Derby. So Talkin needs to get a lot better.
The other aspect of the Chad Brown story is the fact that he had the horse early in the season that was regarded as the horse to beat in the Kentucky Derby, and that was Paladin. And Paladin ends up going to the sidelines with an injury, doesn't make the Derby. Paladin had defeated Renegade in the Remsen. He ended up finishing ahead behind Renegade in the race before that, the maiden race, and Renegade was disqualified, so Paladin got the win that day. So Renegade had not officially beaten Paladin, and we saw how well Renegade ran. Boy, you got to think about all the missed opportunities, right, with a horse like Paladin, and that's another one that's kind of heartbreaking.
He was on the top of a lot of people's Derby list, wasn't he, after the Risen Star? Paladin just ran down Chip Honcho on the square, and I gave flowers to his effort in the Risen Star. That was a lights-out performance. He didn't deserve to lose that race, but Paladin ran that well, and they left Golden Tempo in the dust. I was on Golden Tempo that day, and you leave the Risen Star just kind of going, well, what else can they give you, Golden Tempo? They give you pace, they give you a clear lane, blinkers, what else do we need? Obviously, just a little more experience was all it took for him, but Paladin gets so flattered by some of the horses that ran behind him. Like you said, it is a shame that we don't get to see him really test his mettle in the Derby, but Paladin is still an exciting horse to look forward to coming back. And I think circling back to the 3-year-old question, he is going to be another big barometer when he does return as to how good this crop is, because he was at the forefront of it for a good part of the spring. We just didn't get to see how that panned out in the Run for the Roses.
Yeah, we're going to have lots of Preakness talk, as you would imagine, next Saturday here on the Equine Forum. Preakness morning, we'll cover a lot of those storylines. You'll hear from so many of the connections, and we'll kind of take you inside the Middle Jewel and talk about some of the other supporting races, too. It's always a great afternoon of racing in Maryland, and we're going to celebrate it for you coming up next week here on the Equine Forum. So make sure you don't miss that, and join myself and Angela 8 to 11 a.m. Eastern, as you do every Saturday morning, and we'll get you ready for that spectacular horse race. No Derby winner, but it figures to be a great betting race, Angela.
Of course, and when you do have a whole new list of contenders to deal with that are getting better as they go along, you can find some prices sometimes underneath and in some of the exotic slots, and it's another case, just like the Derby, where they will stack up a big card surrounding the Preakness as well. Lots of special wagers involved, and money-making opportunities go with them.
When we come back, we will take a look at a few dates in racing history as they apply to this weekend and look ahead to our number 3. This is the Equine Forum on the Horse Racing Radio Network.
Ms. Fernandez, what are those tiny things?
Those are what we call amoebas. You can only see them through a microscope.
Wow.
Today's students are tomorrow's great thinkers and innovators. But right now, there's a funding crisis in public schools. Millions of kids go to schools that don't have funding for books, computers, and so much more just because of where they live. You can help change that. Donor Shoes is a nonprofit that lets you support students and teachers in your community and beyond. You choose which supplies to support. You could provide first graders with pencils and paper, or other students with their first chapter books, help a music class get a guitar.
You could even supply a classroom like mine with a science project. But what you're really giving is the moment that sparks a brighter tomorrow.
To learn more, please visit DonorsChoose.org. That's DonorsChoose.org. Choose students. Shape the future.
I'm 54, so basically, it's too late to start saving for retirement, right?
Not right. Starting to save, even in your 50s, can really make a difference.
Well, right now, saving seems hard to wrap my head around. Plus, with the way this year's been going...
Hey, listen, it's okay. You still got this. Just go to aceyourretirement.org. It's an online tool from AARP that can help you get your retirement savings on track no matter your age. It's free and only takes about 3 minutes.
I like 3 minutes.
Yeah, at aceyourretirement.org, you'll chat with Avo, the friendly digital retirement coach. Just answer a few questions and you'll get a personalized plan and tips to help boost your retirement savings. Tips that are easy to understand and tailored to your lifestyle.
I like that too.
Plus, it's sponsored by AARP, so you know they got your back. Just head to aceyourretirement.org and make your plan to start saving for retirement.
Thanks.
That's aceyourretirement.org. A message from AARP and the Ad Council.
Dear VetTix, it was nice to spend the night with my daughter and other veterans. It's so humbling to attend an event when you feel appreciated.
I had a wonderful time with my family. Thank you for the memories, VetTix.
Dear VetTix, thank you for a great experience and for your support of the military and veterans.
Thank you so much, VetTix. Our family has gone through a lot the last few years, and this gave us a nice break.
Every empty seat at a concert, game, or special event is a missed opportunity to say thank you to a veteran or a service member. By giving your extra tickets to VetTix, you'll help America's heroes reduce stress, strengthen family bonds, and create a truly happy memory that will last a lifetime. So when you really want to say thank you for your service, give the experience, give the memory. VetTix. Give something to those who gave. For more information on how you can make a difference, go to vettix.org.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Welcome back, Mike Penna, Angela Hermann, here on the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires, winding down hour number 2, getting ready for hour number 3. If you missed any portion of the show, you know what to do. Head back to the website after we finish up at 11 a.m. Eastern, and you can listen to the podcast whenever you get a few minutes. You can do that, too, on your favorite podcast platform. However you access your podcast, type in Horse Racing Radio Network and check out the podcasts of this show and all the shows we bring your way. Well, Angela, this segment is kind of fun. This is where I take a look at historical dates in racing history, and I picked out a few specific ones. Yesterday, May 8th, 1937, was the anniversary of Mary Hirsch, the daughter of Max Hirsch, who had conditioned 1936 Kentucky Derby winner Bold Venture, becoming the first woman trainer to saddle a runner in the Kentucky Derby. The horse was No Sir, who was also owned by Miss Hirsch, and finished 13th in the field of 20. So an interesting one there. We can talk more about that. May 9th, 1982. Today, we say happy anniversary to jockey Chris McCarron, who won his 3,000th career race on this day in 82. He did it aboard, all right, let's see if I can get this name right, Aggrandizement. I hope that's right. In the 9th race at Hollywood Park. And then one more for you tomorrow, May 10th, 1910. That's the anniversary of George Wolfe, the namesake of a Jockeys Award that's given annually by Santa Anita Park, given to, as a matter of fact, Julian Leperoux this year. George Wolfe was born in Cardston, Alberta, May 10th, 1910. Those are dates in racing history as they apply to this particular weekend. The Mary Hirsch one is one I really wanted to get out there, considering we just saw Cherie DeVaux become the first female trainer to win the Kentucky Derby, and then Mary Hirsch, the first woman to saddle a runner in the Kentucky Derby back in 1937.
That's right, the girl power. And that was so, the reaction of Cherie DeVaux, that's gone viral all over the place. How much fun. Like, you wanted to be there standing right next to her, jumping up and down on the rail. And we had talked about it before. It was a matter of when, not if, with Cherie DeVaux getting a Derby win. And I'm so glad that she got it with Golden Tempo. It's hard to find anything to root against, and especially with her and the time and effort that she has put in as a trainer coming up and just handling him impeccably to get him to that spot and get him in the winner's circle.
Is Mike Rapoli ever going to win a Kentucky Derby?
Oh, goodness. Yeah, he has to, doesn't he? He's taking
he has been knocking on the door, hasn't he?
He has. And I mean, Renegade, one of his best shots ever, of course, draws the rail, still gets a heck of a ride out of Jose Ortiz, and then his brother Jose comes charging on the outside and just nabs him. But I don't think you can shouldn't hang your head after that effort. Did everything but win, and Renegade really backed up that all the hype going towards him was legit.
One of the coolest, I thought, videos that came out on social media after the Kentucky Derby was immediately after as Erod was on his way back to the jocks room after being narrowly defeated and denied that first Derby win by his brother. Mike Rapoli, the owner of Renegade, came over and was consoling him, but in a way that only Mike Rapoli could do, right? We can't play it on air because, as you can imagine, there were several F-bombs included in that conversation with Mike Rapoli. But he was telling him, this is why you are the greatest jockey in the country, because the ride you gave to our horse from the one hole after all the trouble you had to overcome, and he was hugging him, and Erod was emotional, and you could tell he was crying, and Mike was like, listen, we love you. You did such a great job. We are so proud of you. And I thought that was just really awesome. It was a cool moment.
And to try to track 19 stories, and there's a lot of good ones among them, to get that moment and really capture, I guess, the excitement and the heartbreak really meeting with the runner-up, because he did everything that he could for Renegade. He had nothing to hang his head about, but he is such a competitor that nothing matters but winning. I mean, as good a ride as it was second best in his mind, but I think everybody else saw it a little bit differently, kind of the way that Rapoli did. He pulled off a masterful ride from a very disadvantageous position, and we continue to talk about those two rides because they did pull off something that not a lot of riders can in horses that were in the positions that they were. So hats off to the connections, and Rapoli will get a win at some point, but maybe there won't be so much adversity even before the gate opens as Renegade maybe had to face.
Yeah, Todd Pletcher said it was a tough beat. I'm sure it was. Renegade a neck away from joining Ferdinand, becoming the first Derby winner from Post 1 since Ferdinand back in 1986, and oh so close, except for a horse named Golden Tempo and the Cherie DeVaux trainee getting the victory. Ramon Dominguez, when he joined us in the first hour of the program, if people are just tuning in right now and they're just catching the show at this point and they missed Ramon, you'll want to go back and listen to that interview. As a matter of fact, we'll break it out. We'll post it individually on our website after the show, because you and I were both blown away. We didn't want to ask another question. We just wanted to sit back and listen to Ramon talk when he started walking through the rides of both Jose Ortiz and Jose Ortiz. It was brilliant.
I think if we gave him maybe a telestrator and a pen or something, he could go through the trips of each one of them, from maybe the pan shot and then the drone shot, and point out the little differences that might have propelled a horse forward or might have cost a horse some position. It's so hard to get with the 19 stories to follow all of the trips and all of the things that can't be put into a chart. There's only so much room in a chart to get the true story of how a horse's trip unfolded. And Ramon took us through it and really laid out things that aren't in the chart that could make a difference going forward. And what he saw out of it and what he gleaned for the future might be totally different than what you took away from the race. So like Mike said, go back and listen to what Ramon said about the Derby, because it may open your eyes to some things that you didn't even notice in the first couple of runnings.
The other thing people might be wondering if they're just tuning into the show right now, just joining us, is, hey, Barron, who's this chick doing the show with you? Well, her name is Angela Hermann, and you're going to hear from her every single week here on the Equine Forum. We are going to be co-hosting the program together and really excited for this going forward. Angela, we've got a couple of minutes before we have to segue into Hour 3, which kicks off with the TwinSpires Triple Play. But let people know a little bit more about Angela Hermann. How did you first get hooked on racing?
Sure. Actually, I think that's a very timely question because my very first memory of horse racing is the 1998 Kentucky Derby. I was a horse crazy little girl. I loved riding horses every opportunity I could. I went to camps. I went trail riding. I wanted a horse of my own so bad. And I couldn't. I lived in suburban Minnesota. There weren't exactly farms everywhere. It's not horse country up here. So my experience could be gleaned through the TV and watching the Triple Crown and watching all the coverage. And there was a lot of it in the late 90s on TV. And real quiet, as crooked as he was and as much of a sire as he did not become, still grabbed my heart and held right onto it because he was my first pick in a Kentucky Derby. And it just so happened that he came home victorious, the Fish. And I followed him and I followed his progeny. And as soon as I could drive, I got a job at the track, and the rest is history.
And now you're up at Canterbury Park?
I am. Yep. I've worked at Canterbury Park for 22 years now. So if you ever can't find me, Canterbury Park is probably the first place you should look.
Yeah, fantastic stuff, and really looking forward to this new endeavor. We're going to have a lot of fun going forward. By the way, we're both tied to that 1998 Kentucky Derby because it was my first Kentucky Derby I ever attended, and I took my girlfriend at the time, my wife Michelle, and she's still with me. I asked her to marry me. We got engaged at that Kentucky Derby, and it was really cool. So we're both tied to that 1998 Kentucky Derby for a lot of reasons. It's a special thing for both of us. Going to take a break. We're going to come back with hour number 3. That's next, right after this 10-second pause for station identification. This is the Horse Racing Radio Network, where racing comes to talk.
This is HRRN, horse racing's voice.
And here's always a runner up for the lead. Always a runner in the race for the Lilies. Under the lights. Wins the Oaks by a length in the end.
Welcome to the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires.
I knew my horse was a bit closer, so I don't have any interest on being involved early. You can see the way I broke. I just want to go to the rail and save ground, So I did that, and I was hoping for a big run late, and I was hoping for a fast pace, and I'm glad we had it.
Golden Tempo from off the pace to win the Derby, and a career-defining, a racing-defining win for Cherie DeVoe.
That's how he runs, so it's not like we really did anything different than he hadn't done in his previous starts. There was a lot of speed on tap on paper, and that materialized. And, I watched Jose come up and get himself in position going into the final turn. And about the 3/16 pole, I thought, we're probably going to win this. And then I really kind of blacked out after that.
Now, here's Mike Penna and Angela Hermann.
Welcome back, hour 3 of the Equine Forum, post-Kentucky Derby edition, rolling on, all presented by our friends at TwinSpires. Mike Penna, Angela Hermann with you. One more hour to go, and if you missed any portion of the first 2 hours of the show, we'll encourage you to head back to the website, horseracingradio.net, to check out the podcast, and do so on your favorite podcast platform, wherever you access your podcast. If you missed the first 2 hours, boy, did you miss a lot. Our conversation with jockey Jose Ortiz, looking back on his win in the Derby. Walker Hancock with our Kentucky-bred conversation, talking about the early days of Golden Tempo as he was born and raised at Claiborne Farm. And then Ramon Dominguez, the Hall of Famer, talking about the Kentucky Derby, some of the things that he saw from a rider's perspective, which was absolutely fascinating. If you missed any of that, check out the podcast after we finish up here at 11 a.m. Hour 3 begins as it does every week with the TwinSpires Triple Play. We'll give you 3 races to watch and wager on with TwinSpires this afternoon. Kurt Becker's Stroll Through Racing History, Mother's Day edition, talking about the mom of Golden Tempo, Carumba, who is out at Claiborne. You'll get a chance to hear that story at 10:20, and at 10:30, I Ask, They Answer with Dale Romans and Tim Wilkin. They'll both be here to join us. Angela, fast-moving first 2 hours, and really excited for this third hour.
I'm excited for it, too. This is going to be an experience I haven't delved into before, but I'm going to compare notes with Joe Kay. We get to talk more about wrapping up the Derby and looking ahead to the future. And I'm very curious to see who he came up with today at Churchill, because we did talk to Jose Ortiz earlier, and I'm curious about one of his mounts later on in the card at Churchill.
Joe Kristufek was set to join us for the triple play, but he is a late scratch. He's having some car issues, to say the least, and he is not going to be able to join us for this segment here this week. He'll take a rain check, but he did send us his 3 selections for you. So he did send in the triple play. He's a gamer. No matter what happens, he's still going to make sure that he gets his picks to you. So we'll pass those along momentarily. But before we get to that segment, I want to give you our Impossible Trivia question presented by Mojo Racing. If you missed it in the first 2 hours of the show, here it is. In the years 1917 and 1922, it was practically impossible for a horse to win the Triple Crown. What made it impossible in those 2 specific years, 1917, 1922? No Googling. Get your mojo working. The answer comes your way in the final segment of the show right around 10:55 Eastern. And the poll question for you, which Kentucky Derby runner other than Golden Tempo and Renegade are you most excited to see run again? You can cast your vote and comment at HRRN on X, Horse Racing Radio Network on Facebook, or email the show, mike@horseracingradio.net. Well, I mentioned Joe unable to make it, and we certainly understand he's dealing with an awful lot of things right now. But, Angela, I said he gave us his 3 races that he likes best for this week's triple play, and it begins with race number 8 at Churchill this afternoon. Races 8, 9, and 10 are the 3 races he selected. Race 8, a 1-mile turf event. Those are always a lot of fun. Purse of $127,000. It's an allowance race. Now winners of 1 other than. And his top pick in here, he's going to go with number 3, Love 'em or Liam. And I love the name of this horse, too. It's Liam, because the horse's sire is Liam's Map. So Love 'em or Liam, number 3 at 4-1 on the morning line, is going to be his top pick.
And I had seen Love 'em or Liam down at Gulfstream when he broke his maiden on the synthetic track, and that had been following up quite a string of knocking on the door sort of performances, whether they be on the dirt or on the turf. But I don't know if it was the field that kind of propelled him, the move to synthetics, or just putting all the pieces together. But I would guess that Joe thought it was the third option, because when he went to Keeneland, he was closing like a freight train that day. Almost got there. I know that Love 'em or Liam gets a nice inside post. I would anticipate he might be a bit closer. It doesn't look like this field is overloaded with pace, but Love 'em or Liam probably, I think, would sit at a very cozy spot on the inside. He does have a bit of speed coming out from the rail to his left, so if he can find a way to tuck in, I can see why he does like this horse. He's a very tepid second choice at 4-1, but I can see why he picked this race out as one of the triple plays. It looks like it could go a number of ways depending on scratches.
Yeah, and in a really wide open race, when you take a look at a big field, you have horses that are 4-1 and 9-2 and 7-2. You don't have anybody that's really that standout, 2-1 favorite or 9-5 morning line favorite. You see horses that are pretty well balanced. The horse I'm going with, strictly by his name, 2 Beers by 10. 2 Beers.
Sounds a little light.
I would change the name to maybe like 12 Beers by 10, but 2 Beers by 10 seems to work.
Yeah, maybe we'll pretend it's 10 a.m. and then that's just another morning after the Derby or something like that. Maybe it's a celebratory 2 Beers by 10. But I tend to look at the horse that Joe picked out, and the more I look through the field, I can see why he does like this horse quite a bit. And if he can take that up to Churchill would be my only question. He hasn't been over the turf course. Some horses really love that grass. Some absolutely hate it. But considering the versatility that he's shown and how much he's liked whatever surface they've thrown at him, I think he does make quite a bit of sense in this spot. So I get it, Joe.
Yeah, I always yield to Joe Kristufek's expertise. But the horse Samud in here for Brendan Walsh, number 8, 7-2 on the morning line with Tyler Gaffalione. He's a horse that's super interesting to me. He's yet to run a really poor race in his career. 6 starts, he has the 1 win, 4 seconds, and a third. And maybe those 4 seconds are a little concerning, but he ran his eyeballs out last time at Keeneland. And if he runs that same race, I think he can be the winner.
He could be coming on at the end. I wanted to watch A Bourbon for Toby because he went up to New York, and I believe earlier this week he took on some stakes type of competition, and Shug McGahee's Integration, I believe, was in that field, and A Bourbon for Toby was just left behind. So I do question a bit some of the horses coming out of that allowance. The horse that did beat him by a nose didn't flatter that, but just given the fact that he can handle the mile and an eighth, and is cutting back a little bit off that's the only concern with me. The class is definitely there with Samut, though.
All right, Joe, we're going with your top pick, number 3, Love 'Em or Liam, in race number 8 at Churchill as the first leg of the TwinSpires Triple Play. His second race that he has chosen, race number 9, mile and an eighth on the main track. This is a optional claimer. You got a purse of $141,000. It's for the older horses, and he's going to go with number 6, Gould's Gold, in this spot this afternoon.
And Gould's Gold gets back to Churchill, where he has had some success in the past, and you can see that the mile and an eighth distance is exactly where he registered that win at Churchill. A lot of it makes sense, and he does get Esquivel this time around, but I have to mention the horse on the inside, Admiral Dennis, coming back. He is your 7-5 morning line favorite. I like that he takes a shot against him, because this is the time when you're supposed to take a shot against a horse on the comeback trail. A lot of backclass for Admiral Dennis, though. He made a lot of noise on the Derby Trail last year. He ended things off with the Bluegrass, but seemed to be none the worse for wear when he came back to Delaware. Haven't seen him since Ellis Park. And when you see this string of works coming for Brad Cox, and you see Irad Ortiz in the saddle, you know that 7-5 may not even be a thing. But what do you make of Admiral Dennis in this particular spot? I don't love the rail for him. The conditions obviously fit very nicely. But do you see this as more of a stepping stone, or do you think he's going to fire a big shot?
No, I think it's a stepping stone. I think he's just getting started back. Now, he could be primed and ready to go, and he could blow this field away because he does have that back class. But I look at this as saying, okay, he drew the rail. That's not ideal. He'll have plenty of time to get a position going into that first turn, being a mile and an eighth on the main track at Churchill, because you have that bit of a run before you hit the turn. But I would play against him at the expected short price this afternoon.
That's fair. I think that I view it the same way that you do. They don't need to win this. This is just a spot that came up that made some sense. So if there's bigger targets for him down the line, and I'm sure there are if he's coming back as even a fraction of what he used to be, I do look, just a short look, at a horse next door who's been off form horribly recently, that being Burnin' Hot. Hasn't been able to get the lead, and maybe that's been a big part of it, but has been not even in the same zip code as the winner by the end of the race. Still shows up in a spot like this, and Rowan Crichton isn't afraid to throw a horse in for a tag. He picked this horse up last spring, so for him to put Burnin' Hot in this kind of spot instead of maybe some sort of a little bit softer claimer says that maybe Burnin' Hot's doing better than his recent races have indicated, and he could steal this one on a track that he absolutely loves. That would be my only clever sort of play in here. I think that he might be a bit of an overlay.
If you're going to talk about Admiral Dennis, as you did a minute ago with Irad Ortiz, I'm going to talk about Tistastic with Jose Ortiz in this 9th race this afternoon. Steve Asmussen, the trainer. This is a horse that not only was he on the Derby Trail last year, he got to the Kentucky Derby. He ended up finishing 10th behind Sovereignty as a long shot in that race. But you remember he won the Louisiana Derby, and at that point really started to had the look of that buzz horse coming into his own. Mm-hmm. And he's struggled, though, since that Derby. He's 0 for 4 since running in the Kentucky Derby last year, and really hasn't even been close. Can you give Tistastic a look going back to the main track in here?
I would give him grace for those 4 turf races. They were obviously very tough spots if he didn't win his first 2 turf races. So I can't say that he doesn't like the grass, because he does. And he even likes Kentucky Downs, as he showed. And he showed nothing in the Derby when last he tried it. So I would have to be much more forgiving, just like I am with the 2 of Tistastic, but at least you know that he does like Churchill, and he would be probably a horse I would be inclined to use more underneath, as I don't see it being a meltdown sort of pace scenario, and I think that's what Tistastic is looking for more often than not.
Well, Joe Kristufek says it's going to be number 6. Gould's Gold is his top pick, so we'll side with him on this one. One more race. He chose race number 10, so he goes 8, 9, and 10 in succession. I love it. Race number 10, the William Walker Stakes with a purse of $225,000. This one is for the 3-year-olds going 5.5 furlongs on the turf. These are always head scratchers for me. I don't do well handicapping turf sprints typically. I like to use half the field, and the winner usually comes from the other half that I didn't play. But race number 10 is a good one, and he'll take number 2, Throckmorton, as his top pick. He also likes number 1, Reb 5. So if you're looking for an exacta, maybe go with the Kristufek exacta here. But he does like Throckmorton, who is 3-1 on the morning line for Jose Francisco D'Angelo.
Yeah, he's covering his bases with a horse that's going to be close to the front and a horse that's probably going to come from the clouds. So I see the dual attack with that. I like turf sprints, and this is an interesting one. There's not that many 3-year-old restricted turf sprints coming around at this time of year anymore. And I want to ask you this question as it relates to the last race, too. There's more and more age-restricted races. And usually as we get to like June or July, they start facing off against some older competition. I like these restricted ones because you tend to now start getting more of the specialists than you used to earlier in the spring. We actually have some turf sprint form to go off. And with that in mind, I guess I look to Sandals Song and Jose Ortiz because they were bet down last time. I liked the horse a bit going into the race. He blew it at the start, but they thought enough of him off his debut, which was a win in a stake race, to send him overseas. If things don't work out, that's fine. But they bring him back in stakes company, and they keep him against stakes company. So I think there's a lot more than what he showed in the Palisades at Keeneland, and he's going to show it at Churchill.
What is it about turf sprints that you like?
I think sometimes the randomness of it, but you can factor in some more stuff.
I struggle with these.
Oh, I'm a cheap speed person too. I won't say who gave me the nickname Miss Cheap Speed at Gulfstream Park, but I tend to take some horses that don't look the most logical on paper, and more often than not, I'll find one a day that'll steal a race. And sometimes you can find that with some of these turf sprinters, just because a slow gate break won't cost a horse going 1.25 miles quite as much as it will going 5 on the turf. So if you can find a horse that's just maybe in the right spot and has got a bit of sharpness edge over some of these, or maybe just had a bad break last time. A bad break looks so much worse on paper than it can play out. And as long as the horse gets out of the gate decently, he hasn't thus far, I think that you do have some upside potential with horses like that can absolutely blow it in a sprint where they can recover in a route race and they can look like a new horse the next time around.
Did you just give me your nickname on the show now? I'm the Baron of the Backstretch. Are you now Miss Cheap Speed? Is that what we're going with?
I've been called it a number of times. It doesn't bother me. So if you'd like to go ahead and dub me Miss Cheap Speed, I think I'll probably back that up as time goes on.
We'll have to think about that. But, yeah, I mean, a lot of people would say, hey, wait a minute. My nickname growing up was the Mush. And I've actually considered, you know how I think it's ESPN that does You Got Mossed, right? For their leading into the NFL coverage every week.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm thinking, man, I don't want to steal from them, but I mean something like You Got Mushed when I pick one of the horses. but I make a lot of people mad at me, though, if I start picking their horses.
Oh, well, join the club. Try being a paddock analyst. Anytime that you pick somebody's horse, magically you found a tripwire for it. That's just part of the job, and usually it's all light-natured ribbing and everything. But, yeah, nobody wants you to have their horse. And even when we're gambling, you don't want the person next to you betting on your horse. You want to be the only one. You're not, but you want to feel that way.
Yeah, that's true. That is so true. That's a job that I wouldn't want to have because you're going to be right. You're going to make a lot of people happy. You're going to be wrong. You're going to piss a lot of people off. So it's hard to find that balance when you're making picks and giving them out. But Joe Kristufek does it quite well. And his top 3 for you in this week's TwinSpires Triple Play in race number 8 at Churchill today. He'll go with number 3, Lovem or Liam at 4-1 on the morning line. Race 9, he'll take number 6, Gould's Gold, 5-2. And in race number 10, number 2, Throckmorton at odds of 3-1 will be his top pick. And don't forget, you can play each of those races any way you like. Just make sure you're doing it with TwinSpires. It's a fantastic betting platform, and you can take advantage of all of the opportunities and promotions and contests, too. They have great contests all at TwinSpires, but we appreciate Joe sending those in, even though he was dealing with his car issues and couldn't join us here on the show this morning. But really appreciate those three, and we wish you all the best of luck when you're playing those races with TwinSpires this afternoon. Okay, coming up next, Kurt Becker takes you on his weekly Stroll Through Racing History presented by Keeneland, a story about the dam of the Derby winner. That's Carumba. You're going to hear that story coming up next. And then I Ask, They Answer with Dale and Tim, 10:30 Eastern. Stay with us. It's the Equine Forum presented by TwinSpires on HRRN.
Race to TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Join us at Churchill Downs for live racing now through June 28th, with live racing Thursday through Sunday in May and Wednesday through Sunday in June. You'll have great wagering opportunities, including low 15% takeout pick 5s and a $3 late pick 3. Plus, you won't want to miss our two special Downs After Dark cards on Saturday, May 16th and Saturday, June 20th, all leading up to a stakes-filled day of racing on Stephen Foster Day, Saturday, June 27th, including 7 stakes worth $3.1 million. For more information and tickets, visit churchilldowns.com.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Hello, I'm Kurt Becker. Thanks for joining me as I take another stroll through racing history presented by Keeneland. Last weekend, Golden Tempo won the 152nd running of the Kentucky Derby, and, as has become the tradition on the stroll, we dedicate our Mother's Day weekend edition to the dam of the Derby winner. And the mare's name is Carumba. Foaled May 15, 2012 at Claiborne Farm in Paris, Kentucky, Carumba is a gray or roan mare by Bernardini out of Castanet by El Prado. She was bred and retained for racing by Phipps Stable with Shug McGahee as her trainer. There has long been a mystique about stakes fillies and broodmares belonging to the late Ogden Phipps and his descendants. So deep and rich are their pedigrees that sometimes sales announcers don't even bother going into detail. They will simply say, "Here's one from a good Phipps family," or "This is Phipps breeding," up and down the page. This year's Derby winner, and by extension his first dam, fit that description. Theirs is a pedigree which has been evolving for 60 years into a true Phipps family. 1 year ago, we spoke of Sovereignty and how his pedigree was steeped in tradition dating to the 1920s. Admittedly, Golden Tempo's pedigree is not quite as deep for as many generations, but that is even a further testament to Ogden Phipps, as well as his successors, with respect to the decisions the Phipps family has made to take what had been a good pedigree and make it exceptional. As a matter of fact, Golden Tempo's first 5 dams are all Phipps bred. So to tell the story of this year's Derby winner and his pedigree properly, we go back to the late 1960s when Ogden Phipps bought Golden Tempo's great-great-great-great-granddam. That mare's name was Lady Pitt, and she was a foal of 1963 by Sword Dancer. She would be the breakout mare which would start the process of helping the pedigree go from good to great, and Ogden Phipps saw the potential and capitalized on it. Racing for Tom Easer's Golden Triangle stable based in Pittsburgh, Lady Pitt won 2 legs of the New York Triple Crown for fillies, capturing both the Coaching Club American Oaks at 1 1/4 miles and the Mother Goose at 1 1/8 miles. She would be named the Eclipse Award winner as America's champion 3-year-old filly of 1966. Ogden Phipps was keenly aware of Lady Pitt, given that Phipps's homebred filly, Marking Time, was foaled in the same crop. After Lady Pitt had been retired for breeding purposes and had foaled her first 2 babies, Phipps approached Easer and purchased Lady Pitt privately. A few years after that transaction, Phipps bred Lady Pitt to dual classic winner Riva Ridge. From that mating came Blighty, a filly which won 2 graded stakes, including the 1979 Test Stakes at Saratoga in last to first fashion. Blighty would later produce Oh What a Dance by Nijinsky. The latter would become the dam of Dancing in My Dreams by Seeking the Gold, with Dancing in My Dreams becoming the dam of Castanet by El Prado. When the Phipps family made the decision to breed Castanet to Bernardini, the resultant foal was Carumba. And this is where the story of this year's Derby winner begins to come into focus. Little did anyone know at the time that Bernardini would become an elite broodmare sire, and Carumba herself would become a respectable graded stakes filly, not necessarily at the top level, but at a significant level nonetheless. Carumba, in fact, would break her maiden at Saratoga as a 3-year-old. Her jockey that day was Jose Ortiz. At age 4, she would win the graded top flight handicap at Aqueduct, again with Ortiz in the irons. Jose Ortiz knew Carumba well, and he would also come to know her son, Golden Tempo. Ortiz was aboard the colt last Saturday for the 152nd running of the Kentucky Derby, and Travis Stone of Churchill Downs gives us the call.
Denon Bourbon's off the turn, and he's got a 3-length lead, heading for the 8th pole. O'Selly and Commandment are closing in. Renegade rolling down the top of the track, and Golden Tempo from far behind. Denon Bourbon trying to fend off O'Selly. Renegade, and here's Golden Tempo. Golden Tempo from off the pace to win the Derby, and a career-defining, a racing-defining win for Cherie DeVaux.
In a last-to-first run, Golden Tempo won the Kentucky Derby at odds of 23-1, paying $48 at the windows on a $2 ticket. Racing as a homebred for Phipps Stable and St. Elias Stable, he became the first Derby winner not only for Ortiz, but also for trainer Cherie DeVaux, as well as the first for his sire, Curlin. It took 2 minutes and 2 seconds to run the Kentucky Derby last Saturday, but it took 60 years to develop the pedigree of the winner to its full classic potential. As for Carumba, she continues to reside at Claiborne Farm. She did not have a foal this year, but she has been bred to Gun Runner with hopes of another baby in 2027. In the meantime, she takes her place in the history books as the dam of a Kentucky Derby winner. Happy Mother's Day weekend, everyone. Please join me again next week when I take another stroll through racing history presented by Keeneland. For HRRN, I'm Kurt Becker.
And once again, my thanks to Kurt and to Keeneland for making those segments possible each and every week. If you have missed any of Kurt's Stroll Through Racing History segments, all you have to do is head back over to our website, horseracingradio.net. You can check out the special podcast page dedicated to those stories and listen to every single one. There have been some amazing ones. Go back and listen at horseracingradio.net. When I come back, Dale Romans, Tim Wilkin, they will be here. It is this week's edition of I Ask, They Answer. This is the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on HRRN.
Race to TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
When it's time to paint the fences and barns, think Farm Paint. At Farm Paint, you get the industry's best coatings and paints factory direct at low, low prices. Farm Paint is your source for quality paints, roof coatings, dustless arena footings, and more. You can purchase online or drop into a Farm Paint store near you with locations in Heart of Bluegrass Country at 700 Phillips Lane in Lexington, Kentucky, Columbus, Ohio, and Sandusky, Ohio. Buy factory direct and save at farmpaint.com. That's farmpaint.com.
A Keeneland session topper from the first crop of the all-conquering Vekoma. Jonathan's Way was touted by purchaser John Moynihan as, quote, one of the best-looking horses you'll ever lay your eyes on. Out of an undefeated stakes-winning juvenile daughter of Indian Charlie, Jonathan's Way is a complete outcross through his first 5 generations and comes from the immediate female family of the great Dynaformer. Brilliantly talented with the pedigree and physical makeup to be commercial dynamite. Jonathan's Way, a future stallion star, standing at Airdrie Stud. Think about it.
This is HRRN. where racing comes to talk. This is I Ask, They Answer on the Equine Forum on HRRN.
As they round the far turn, and Oselli is picking it up with a wide bid as they come for the top of the stretch, where Denon Bourbon has taken charge. Denon Bourbon's off the turn, and he's got a 3-length lead heading for the 8th pole. Oselli and Commandment are closing in. Renegade rolling down the top of the track, and Golden Tempo from far behind. Denon Bourbon trying to fend off Oselli. Renegade, and here's Golden Tempo. Golden Tempo from off the pace to win the Derby, and a career-defining, a racing-defining win for Cherie DeVaux.
Golden Tempo and Renegade were separated by a neck at the end of their 1.25-mile journey last Saturday in a race that really didn't deserve a loser. Which horse who finished behind them are you most excited to see return? Dale and Tim weigh in on that topic. Plus, can anything more be done to eliminate late money changing pools after the horses leave the starting gate? And with the Derby winner skipping the Preakness for the second consecutive year, are even hardcore traditionalists ready for some change? All of those topics and much, much more straight ahead with Dale, Tim, all presented by the University of Louisville Equine Industry Program and the College of Business, and all starting just 30 seconds from right now.
A spark turns into a dream, and your dreams fuel a love that will last a lifetime. Turn your passion into a career with experienced guidance, a thorough study of equine business, as well as opportunities to get your hands dirty and put your mind to work. Located in the heart of horse country, let your passion fuel your profession at the U of L Equine Industry Program. Apply today.
Dale Romans, Tim Wilkin, plenty of things to talk about on this week's show as we look back on the Run for the Roses last weekend. Angela Hermann sitting in with us here this morning. She, my new co-host here on the Equine Forum, and her maiden start here on I Ask the Answer. So you guys got to be nice to her.
Hi, Angela.
Hello, guys. Thanks for letting me join in.
Yeah,
Hi.
welcome to the show.
She's going to come up with some better questions than me, I promise.
It's not hard to do.
Well, okay. Feeling confident already.
Hey, Dale, I got to say,
do better.
Shane in North Carolina had the time of his life getting a chance to meet you, and he sent me a beautiful note and couldn't thank you enough.
Yeah, it was nice to meet him. I wish I had gotten time to spend a little more time with him, but of course you know how hectic it is that week, and it just happened to be very hectic right then when he was in the paddock. But I was glad to meet him, get him into the winner's circle. It looked like they were having fun.
Yeah, he had a great time.
You didn't take him to the barn? I didn't get him back there. He got in late, and there's so many restrictions, and it's hard to get back and forth to Derby and Oaks Day. I was hoping he came in on Thursday. I could have got it done. But I got him in the paddock. We watched the race in the winner's circle together, and it was good.
Yeah.
How much you charge? $200. That was all I had. That's good on Derby Day. Can't get a mint julep for that. Did he have his girlfriend or wife with him? Yes, his wife. Remember, his wife's the one that got him the tickets. He might have his wife and girlfriend both. There were several people there. So you charged him a whole bunch of money then? That $200 a head's not much, Tim. You know that. No, not for the Derby. Mm-mm. And, you know, you probably could have got $100 a head. Maybe a bowl of soup.
Yeah, just wait till he wants to come to Saratoga, Timmy.
Right. Well, if he wants to come to Saratoga, I'll help him out.
Yeah. Well,
although Dale's the mayor of the backstretch there too, anyway.
He said Dale
between the two of us, we can take care of it. But you said what?
He said Dale made it the trip of a lifetime for him, so he really appreciated it. And I thought it was appropriate that we begin the show with a question that Shane submitted for us. And also Sean in Chambersburg, Pennsylvania. They came up with a very similar question for you guys. Aside from Golden Tempo, and, of course, I'm going to throw Renegade into the equation for the purposes of this topic, but aside from Golden Tempo and Renegade, which horses were you most impressed with coming out of the Kentucky Derby, and which horses did you find maybe a little disappointing or surprising that they didn't run better? Tim?
I think it's the obvious one is Oselli, who was
being most impressed with. I mean, for a brief second, I thought he might have was going to win the race, and he's 70-1. He's a maiden who, he was 0 for 6 going in, and he just drew into the race a couple days earlier when full effort was scratched. He ran lights out. I mean, if he would have won that race, people might have started to forget about Rich Strike. A maiden winning the Kentucky Derby. If that had happened, then people might start questioning the caliber of this 3-year-old division. But, he ran great. If he ends up going to the Preakness, which I think that's the direction they're going, he won't be 70-1. I mean, I don't know if I'd pick him, but, kudos to Whit Beckman and his crew for having that horse ready to run, which is, to date, the race of his life.
Yeah. Yeah, that was special. Which horse was maybe a little disappointing or surprising they didn't run better, Timmy?
I think Further Ado, for me, he was the 5-1 lukewarm choice, finished 11th, beaten, about 8 lengths. He never really was a factor. I mean, Johnny Velasquez was saying after the race that he just didn't have any fight. And, that's the worst performance by a favorite since Fierceness a couple years ago when he was 15th. So I would say Further Ado, for me, was the most disappointing on the day. And the other one was what? The horse you're excited to see come back?
Yeah, which one do you want to see next out? Yeah, maybe the horse that ran really well that you're excited to see run again.
Well, I'm going to put the Chief in there, Chief Wallaby. I mean, he had a sneaky good 4th, and he was, he got squeezed by outside horses entering the stretch, and then he got bumped by the Santa Anita Derby winner So Happy at the top of the stretch. Despite getting knocked off stride, he still finished a pretty good 4th. I think 3 lengths behind the winner. I think he's got, and that was his 4th start. I think he's got just a world of potential for Bill Mott as he heads into he'll be the summer, now because he's not, the Belmont. He'll go to the Belmont. He's up in Saratoga now. But I think there's a lot of good things that he could do the rest of the way.
Chief Wallaby would be my pick for the horse I was excited about. I've been on his bandwagon ever since he broke his maiden. He's been playing catch-up, breaking his maiden this winter for the 3-year-old, having to run back in the stakes right away. And he's making progress every race he runs. I think that he's my horse that I'm excited about seeing running, and I thought it ran well behind the first 2. And Commandment, I thought Commandment would show up, and he didn't show up for us.
So to follow up on, I was going to say, if you could, since we know that they're not going to the Derby, that nobody's going to the Preakness, if you could pick anybody out from that Derby field to lead over for the Belmont, give it another go at 1.25 miles at Saratoga, who would it be?
I'm going Chief Wallaby. I think he's catching up. I think Bill gets him back to Saratoga. He trains over the track for for 5 weeks, and he keeps improving. I'm taking Chief.
I like the Chief too, but I'm not going to pick him because Dale did. If I'm going to pick one, Renegade was really impressive. The drawing the 1 hole and getting slammed a little bit coming out of the gate, and then Irad finding the position, and then he made that run. I would pick him. It'll be interesting to see what kind of juice Golden Tempo gets heading into that race. I'm sure every woman in Saratoga will bet on Golden Tempo because Cherie did a great job with him for the Derby. And it was funny, when those horses were going into the gate, I was telling the people I was watching the race with, I said, the horse that I don't have on my ticket that I wish I had on my ticket is Golden Tempo. I don't know why I said that, but I did, because I really had liked him a little bit going into the races down in New Orleans, but I just couldn't pull the trigger on him in the Derby. But proved me wrong. But I think I would take Renegade. I think the Renegade is the best horse in this division right now, to me.
All right, let me ask you guys this question. What does Mike Rapoli have to do to get a Kentucky Derby win?
Keep doing what he's doing. It's working. He's getting close. He's had a couple of favorites scratched. You know, as long as it's a good program. As long as they keep doing what they're doing, they'll get one eventually. It's a hard thing to do.
Maybe he's got to eat more Wheaties.
He just keeps putting himself in position. Eventually, he'll get there.
Yeah, he's got good. You know, he's had good horses, and he's had a lot of bad luck in the Derby with the horses that have had to be scratched, and you know. But, you know, you can't throw any dust on what Renegade's performance in the Derby. He just ran great.
Yeah, Todd Pletcher said it was a tough beat, of course. It's a tough way to lose the Kentucky Derby. Dale, I was thinking about that. What's the one race when you think back on your career, the toughest beat, the hardest one that you've had to get over?
No, there's been a bunch of them, but when first two got nailed on the wire in the Preakness was pretty tough. You know, I hadn't won a Preakness at the time. And so I would say that would be the biggest and toughest one.
Yeah, you know, Ramon Dominguez, who rode First Dude, was with us earlier in the show, and I played that call coming out of the commercial break. Ramon, it's hard to believe, he never won a Triple Crown race. He had 3 seconds, but he never won a Triple Crown race.
Nope. And one of the greatest of all times. I've told my Ramon stories on here before, but what a good person, good man.
But Dale, when you have
jocks of all time.
Dale, when you have a tough beat like that, it's not like you can really dwell on it. You really have to turn the page quick because of this game, don't you?
It takes a little while, yeah. But you got to turn the page and go back to work, and you got to start looking at the one you're going to run in the last race on Wednesday, and get right back at it. But those big ones, I mean, there's bad beats in the A other than allowance race that make you sick for 15 minutes, but you know you got that A other than coming up again in a month. You don't have a Preakness coming back.
So it does linger.
It lingers a little while, but you get over it. Before the night's over, usually people know me, they stay away for an hour or two, and then they're back. I don't feel like talking to anybody for a while.
Sometimes you're the bug, sometimes you're the windshield, right?
Exactly. Nobody's feeling sorry for anybody. Everybody gets their day in the sun, and they get their day when things didn't go well.
Yeah. Well, that was a lot to digest in that first topic. Topic number 2 is one that Angela is going to handle for us. Angela, why don't you take it away?
Yeah, you mentioned misfortune, and sometimes there is a bit made of that with the rail post position in the Derby. And Tom asked, because so much is made about the disadvantage of drawing post 1 in the Kentucky Derby, when there's a late scratch, the field ends up with less than 20 horses. Why is the one horse not moved outward instead of moving the outside horse closer to the rail?
Dale, you want it?
Yeah, I want it, but I don't know the answer. I'll ask that question. You know what? It makes a lot of sense. I will ask that question. It was a lot quicker this year for the horse that was scratched at the gate to move it in. Usually there's 20 horses no matter what. You know, somebody's drawing in from also eligibles. You know, we talked about this similar subject at a little bit of wrap-up we were reviewing with Churchill that, you know, you have to move every horse. So say the one horse scratched. We could have had a long delay. They would have had to move every number down one slot or every number out one slot. And I told them we need an electronic board. But it would make more sense to move the one out. I don't know if there's a rule involved or why they do it, but it's a good enough question. I want to find out when we're off the show. Answer next week.
Well, isn't the main goal of moving horses inward is to prevent a big gap in the middle of the starting gate?
There wouldn't be a big gap if they move them out. It'd all be together.
Okay.
Yeah, instead of sliding in, you're sliding from the inside out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know.
That's a good enough question that stumped us all.
Man, I guess you guys said I was going to ask some better questions than Mike. We're off to a good start, but I'm curious.
Hey, that was Tom in St. Louis. Let's be fair here, Angela. Come on.
Well, I'm trying to take the credit here.
Better delivery.
I'll take that too. Well, and since so much is made of the one, and he still ran such a good race, that being Renegade, if you swap their posts, we're just going to play the Monday morning quarterback. If you swap Golden Tempo and Renegade in the gate, do you think the result is different?
No. No, I think Renegade weaved through traffic. He got a trip, and he got to the lead, and he got caught. I don't think it would have made a bit of difference, and it wouldn't have hurt. It obviously wouldn't have hurt in Golden Temple because he just dropped back to last and galloped around there.
Yeah, he was last. Right, he was. Couldn't even see him on the screen. And Jose's a pretty good rider. And but Angela, I'm going to ask you, what would you do about the rail?
Yeah, what if they swapped, or what would I do?
If you're saying move out or move in.
I mean, I would move out, and I agree that an electronic starting gate would definitely make that easier. But because so much is made of it, I think because they made the new starting gate, maybe they're just doing it the way that they've always done it and moving it quicker and putting them in. But I would actually consider moving them out just for that particular race, just to kind of take that part of the equation out of it, where somebody would have the rail and have some worries about it, and maybe all the bumping down there would be alleviated.
Mm-hmm. Well, because there was some. I mean, all you have to do is watch the replay of the race, and there was some banging going around. I mean, when they broke out of the gate for sure, but there always is.
Is the rail? Dale would be able to answer this one, I'm sure. Dale, is the rail as big of a disadvantage as it used to be when you had the auxiliary starting gate?
Absolutely not, because there's more room to the track. The gate is placed out further on the racetrack physically, so the one would basically be where the two used to be. So you have more room if you do break in a little bit, that you're not hidden behind the rail. And so it's not as bad as it used to be no matter what. But if you look across the board, every horse, there was jostling everywhere. And actually, I thought Renegade came out of it with all the bumping around he did in a pretty good position by 16th into the race.
He did. Yeah.
And how many horses want to move towards the rail when they break out of the gate?
Yeah, there's a lot of them trying to work their way over, and that's probably what made Jose take back like he did. He'd rather have taken back and lost, have to come from behind and make a first rail move than he would have if he had, let him run away from there and been hung up wide.
Well, both brothers rode really good races.
The Cherie DeVos storyline is fantastic. The storyline with Jose and Arad essentially hitting the wire together, both looking for their first Derby win, knowing how close they are. That to me was, man, that was something.
And yourself,
did you see the picture of the video of them jogging back? Arad rode over to hug Jose.
Yes.
Even though he was distraught. I thought that was a shot that hadn't been shown enough.
Loved it.
And you saw who threw out the first pitch at Yankee Stadium this Thursday, right?
No, who did?
Jose and Cherie.
Did they get it across the plate?
Jose threw a strike. Cherie bounced it.
Oh.
But and they both were wearing Yankee jerseys with the number 71, which is the number of Elmer Rodriguez, who was just sent down to the minors, who was the cousin of the Ortiz brothers.
Yep.
He's a pitcher from the Yankee organization.
Huh. You're getting deep in the weeds, sir. I didn't know any of that.
Yeah, well, Jose was with Angela and I earlier in the show, and he talked about how cool that was. He had always wanted to get to Yankee Stadium. He grew up playing baseball and had aspirations of being a professional baseball player. So to walk out there onto the field at Yankee Stadium for the first pitch, he said, was just amazing.
And he was wearing a baseball glove. I wonder if he brought his own glove with him. I bet he did.
I didn't ask him that.
It kind of looked like it, yeah. And he said he used to play shortstop. He handled that like a pro.
Yeah, he told me he once wanted to be the shortstop of the Yankees.
I asked him who was the better baseball player. Was it him or Arad? He said, me. That's an easy one.
Yeah, he said that before. Well, they're both athletic guys and very competitive, as we know.
Well, a couple of good questions from listeners to kick it off. We continue with that theme as Jim from New Jersey has this week's topic for right or wrong, which means it's that time of the show where we say hello to Nick Zito, the Hall of Famer, and Dale and Tim get to tell me if the following statement is indeed right or wrong.
Yeah, right or wrong. Am I right? What do you think? Right or wrong?
Well, let's find out, Nicky. Given the national stage and the size of the win pools, Jim was incredibly disappointed to see the odds on T.O. Elvis drop from 12-1 at post time all the way down to 5-1 when he crossed the finish line in the Churchill Downs Stakes. He asked, What if something similar had happened with Golden Tempo, going from, say, 23-1 to maybe 12-1 during the running of the Kentucky Derby? That would not be a good look. And Jim asked why, with all the focus on limiting CAWs, this continues to happen, and doesn't this play into the once more common thought amongst the general public that horse racing is fixed? Guys, does Jim have a point here? Is he right or wrong?
What do you think? Right or wrong?
Dale, what do you think?
I mean, I don't know what his point is. Yeah, it would be great if it didn't happen, but racing's not fixed. So if he's saying racing's fixed, he's wrong. And they're not getting to bet after the horses break. The money just comes into the out-of-state money last second comes into the pool. It's on 30-second increments. What we need to do is update the technology and make it instantaneous in real time. And even though they would drop in odds at the last second before the gate broke, it would be a better visual.
Yeah, let me clarify that a little bit. Jim not saying that horse racing is fixed. He's saying that when you see something like this happen, it plays into that age-old thought process by the general public that horse racing is fixed. When you see a horse go off at 12-1, cross the line at 5-1, as T.O. Elvis did. You mentioned, Dale, updating the technology. Why hasn't that been done to date?
I have no idea. I'm sure it's wicked expensive, but shit, it's time to do it. I don't know why they keep dragging. I don't even know whose it is. Amp-Tote or one of the tote companies would have to do it. It's not even a racetrack. But the track should start demanding it.
Tim, do you agree this is a horrific look and it needs to stop?
Well, it's not like we're watching The Sting, the old movie from the you remember The Sting, of course, right? We all remember that movie,
Sure.
I hope.
Sure.
You know, when there was shenanigans going on there and poor Doyle Lonigan got stung, but, you know, like Dale said, it's not fixed, but it's not a good look. You know, and I've known players that won't play anymore because they can't compete with the CAWs. What are the alternatives? Maybe they should make fixed odds like they do in, I think, in Jersey and a couple other states around the country, make fixed odds. And I know NYRA has cut off the CAWs for the win bets at 2 minutes to post and the exotic wagers, I think, 1 minute and 59 seconds to post. You just want to make it, you know, for the people that bet. You know, that aren't the players that have played forever. They don't think it's an even playing field for them, and I get that. I mean, the CAWs, they're using the algorithm to dump the massive amounts of money into the pools before the start to shift the horses' odds, and it's not a good look for the players. But there's got to be a way to make it a level playing field in a way. You know, because the tracks are going to want the CAW's monies, right? But maybe fixed odds. Maybe I think that might be the way to go.
I agree with Dale on this point. I think that the place to start is updating tote technology, getting it up to date, and getting it to a point where we can include the CAWs, but on a limited basis, where they can feast on each other, not feast on the retail player, and coexist in the horse racing world. It sounds very utopian, but there are still ways to do that sort of thing. It's a long way down the road, but it would provide a much better look on all fronts and keep people interested in the sport that we love and be able to sell it genuinely as the best betting game in the world, which it is.
What do you think of fixed odds?
Utopian. That's a great word. First time it's been used on this show.
With the three of us, that's no surprise.
Yeah, no. It made it sound really good, this show.
I'm Googling utopian right now, by the way.
Ideal. Yes, it would be ideal to limit their play, and no matter how big the pool gets, keep them at a very limited portion of the pool to get an idea of what the board's going to look like, but not let them feast on the retail player. Let them feast on each other, which they're going to do anyway, but let the retail player genuinely have a chance and know what they're looking at and know what they're going to get when the horses leave the gate.
So you're not a fan of fixed odds?
I wouldn't know enough about the technology for it. That's all. I think that
we can sit here and talk for a half hour why it's a terrible idea, but we're not going to. We can delve into that another day. It's horrible. It's one of the worst things you've ever said on the show. but we can talk about that later. They just passed a law in Kentucky where racetrack can have fixed odds, and I spent 2 days in Frankfurt telling them how silly it was. But they'll never come to fruition unless it's for a futures bet.
Well, maybe we'll talk about that someday.
Updating technology has to be front and center with these issues that racing is facing with some of these. Especially, this is a horrible look when you go from 12-1 to 5-1 at the finish line. It's just terrible. And as Dale said, updating technology, the way to go. It needs to get done sooner rather than later. We appreciate Jim in New Jersey for his topic. And the last one, guys. This one comes from me, so I figured I'll let Angela read it so I don't take the heat.
Yes, I have to properly word it. So here we go with the final topic. And for the second year in a row, the winner of the Kentucky Derby will bypass the Preakness and point for the Belmont. It's obviously not beneficial to the sport trying to capitalize on a record viewership during the Derby telecast on NBC. Is this the final straw that makes even staunch traditionalists lean towards altering the spacing of the Triple Crown races?
Tim, what do you think?
Well, we've talked about this more than once, and I think probably the day is coming when they are going to make a change. But like I've said before, if that's the case, then we aren't going to call it the Triple Crown anymore, because if you're going to space them out more, make it a month between races, that's not the Triple Crown anymore. You can call it something else, but it's not the Triple Crown. And I would fear that it might be tough to keep the public's interest. Right now it's a 5-week deal. If they were to go for 3 months, the 3 races, I think it'd be tough to keep the interest up for the John Q public and the average sports fan who loves watching the Triple Crown, especially when a horse wins both for the first 2 legs, which hasn't obviously it's been a problem lately. But I get why they don't want to run their horses back. Because trainers don't want to run 2 weeks, and I get that. But if they're going to make it a series where it's 3-4 weeks between races, that's the end of the Triple Crown.
Yeah, you've heard me say it all along. What they need to do is boost the relevance of the Preakness, either by raising the purse, putting the bonus system back in place, something that makes the Preakness more relevant. It's not about the horse's well-being. The horse has proven they can run back in 2 weeks. They can run back in the 3 weeks after that in the Belmont. But does it give you the best chance to win the Belmont to skip it? Maybe. But we need to boost the relevance of the Preakness. I think it's been diminished over the years. Purse isn't big enough. There's no bonus system in place. There's no true incentive to get a horse to come from the Derby to the Preakness.
Interesting. We'll see how this all plays out down the road. Guys, we're down to the final minute and a half or 2 minutes left in the show, which means it's time for our West Point of the Week, brought to you by West Point Thoroughbreds. And I'll remind you, from a single horse in 1991 to the winner's circle at the Kentucky Derby, West Point Thoroughbreds is proud to celebrate 35 years of the pursuit of excellence. Experience the gold standard in racing partnerships and join their legacy. Visit westpointtb.com. West Point Thoroughbreds, 35 years of making memories, one race at a time. Timmy, what is your West Point of the Week?
Well, there's a book that came out recently on Cody's Wish, the story of Cody Dorman and Cody's Wish, the 2023 Horse of the Year. It's a fantastic read, and people that don't know the story, Cody Dorman was born with a rare genetic disorder and became best friends with this horse, Cody's Wish. The book is written by Paul Halloran, who did a fantastic job. I'm just about done with the book, and it's a must-read for any horse racing fan. So if you're out there and you're a big fan of Cody's Wish, get this book.
Brilliant. I've heard nothing but good things about it. Dale?
Well, I just want to say happy birthday to our friend, Tim Wilkins. He's a utopian turf rider, co-host, and friend. And I wish him a happy birthday, and if he wants to tell you he's 70, he can do it. I would never reveal his age on air. But He had a birthday a couple of days ago. I happened to call him and interrupt his date when he was out with his friend to wish him a happy birthday. But, Tim, happy birthday. I hope you had a good week.
Gee, Dale, that's great. That's just fantastic.
Happy birthday, Timmy.
Happy birthday to you.
Thank you.
Guys, I appreciate it. We're going to do this.
When you get to be this age, you don't want a birthday anymore, though.
Well, you don't want the alternative either, so keep having them.
Well said.
Yeah, very true. We're going to do this all over again next weekend. Enjoy every bit of the races this weekend, guys.
Sounds good. Angela, you were great.
Well, right back at you. Thanks for chatting, guys.
I Ask the Answer is presented every week by the University of Louisville Equine Industry Program and the College of Business. I'm back with more, including the answer to this week's Mojo Racing Impossible Trivia question next on the Equine Forum on the Horse Racing Radio Network, where racing comes to talk.
Here we go.
Good luck. And they're off. Be part of the story. Own the moment. Go to MojoRacingPartners.com to get your mojo working.
The Department of Veterans Affairs is so innovative, it not only improves the lives of veterans, it transforms the lives of healthcare professionals who serve them with access to the latest technologies and remarkable benefits. Transform your future at vacareers.va.gov.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Well, don't forget, if you're looking for the best in racing coverage online, go to bloodhorse.com. If you want to subscribe to all of the newsletters and Blood Horse Daily, you can do that through their website as well. That's bloodhorse.com. Angela, well done with I Ask the Answer, breaking your maiden there with the boys. That's tough company there.
Oh, no, you guys make it easy. I don't exactly know what's coming my way, but I know that I'm going to have a good time with it, and I hope everybody else did too, listening to it. It's great to get their perspective on some things.
Yeah, it's been a really busy, fast-moving 3 hours. Again, if folks are just catching this, Angela will be part of the show with me every single week, co-hosting the Equine Forum with me, and I think you're really going to enjoy the perspective that she brings to the table. And, Angela, that was a lot of fun here this morning.
I really enjoyed myself, and now we got some winners for the afternoon, so we're all set for a day of winning.
Time now to reveal the answer to this week's Mojo Racing Impossible Trivia question. Lee, what is it?
Thank you, Mike. In 1917 and 1922, it was physically impossible for a horse to win the Triple Crown. What made it impossible those two specific years? No, we're not looking for the answer that the term Triple Crown wasn't coined until 1930. That's a trivia question for another day. What made it impossible for a horse to win all three of the races, the Preakness and the Derby, were run on the exact same day in 1917 and in 1922. Thanks to Mojo Racing Partners for this week's Impossible Trivia question. Get your mojo working at MojoRacingPartners.com.
Angela, been a lot of fun this morning.
I've had a great time, and now we've got some winners for the day, so let's make it a good one.
Let's go for it. We'll do it all over again next Saturday morning. My thanks to all of our guests for making this show possible. If you missed any portion of the show, boy, you miss a lot. Check out the podcast on our website and your favorite podcast platform. For my producer, Lee Delapina, for Angela Hermann sitting in with me here this morning, and for Chauncey handling all of our social media, I'm Mike Penna. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next week. Go Steelers.